The proud, handsome emperor killed the witch with a single sword strike, disregarding her curse, and he has not been able to sleep since. One day, the young emperor went out by himself to train, and met a bold and passionate witch along the path. The impressive man in front of her had a high nose bridge, eyes that sparkled like diamonds, and a hint of arrogance. How could the witch possibly resist him? She lifted the emperor's chin and said, "Little cutie, come with me," the emperor replied without blinking. "You are just a demon. Go away if you want to live." The witch had never been rejected before and became furious. She immediately cursed the emperor and shouted at him, "You are far too arrogant. Do you have any idea who I am?" The emperor showed no mercy at all. With a single swing of his sword, he killed the witch in one blow, ignoring her curse. Although the witch was now dead, her curse would not just disappear. It was set to follow the emperor for the rest of his life. The witch's curse was meant to stop the emperor from ever sleeping again. Of course, because the witch was dead, the way to break the curse was now unknown. Many years passed. The emperor searched for different experts to break his curse, but nothing worked. He never slept at all. Because he suffered every day from the pain of not sleeping, he slowly turned into a tyrant. Then, one day, Duke Macquarie reported to the emperor that his daughter, Lillian, could cure the emperor's sleeplessness. In fact, Lillian was supposed to go see the emperor that day. But sadly, Lillian already had a lover she adored, named Say. The Duke simply told her that she needed to put her family first. In the end, Lillian could not let go of Say and chose love, so she secretly ran from her home to find him. She opened the door, but she only saw that Say had already been killed by the Duke. He was lying in a pool of his own blood. Lillian had lost the man she loved most. Without Say's love, what was her reason for living? In her despair, she took out her knife and ended her own life to be with Say. Lillian, the one person who could cure the emperor, was now dead. The emperor became even more of a tyrant. He took his anger out on the whole Macquarie family, which led to their destruction before the end. This was the original story before the protagonist transmigrated. The new protagonist, Lillian, who had entered this world, wanted to change the sad ending of the story and save the Macquarie family. Lillian went to the palace instead of her sister to cure the sleepless tyrant. Will she be able to save her family from him? The handsome and proud emperor had killed the witch despite her curse, and had not been able to sleep ever since that day. On this day, the transmigrated Lillian went to the palace instead of her sister in order to treat the emperor. The cranky emperor was still having a tantrum because he could not sleep. Lillian came to his bedside. She said softly, "You do not need to think of anything at all. Just lie down. Please try not to move." Lillian slowly and carefully leaned forward. It was completely silent around them, while Lillian moved closer and closer to the emperor. Just as she was about to kiss the emperor, he could feel Lillian's breath near him. Then, he slowly opened his eyes. The emperor reached for Lillian and asked, "What are you doing?" This surprised Lillian, who embarrassedly covered up her mouth. Lillian stepped forward, took the emperor's hand, and then explained, "I was about to kiss your forehead. It is the only way you can sleep." The emperor then closed his eyes and waited for this supposedly magical kiss. Lillian gently gave the emperor a kiss. This was their first close moment together. The emperor immediately felt dizzy, and a pleasant fragrance filled the air around them. He did not feel the same restlessness and frustration as before. His hands relaxed without him noticing. When she saw what was happening, the maid did not dare to even breathe loudly, fearing she might disturb the emperor. Lillian gently waved her hand in front of the emperor's face 2 times. He was really asleep and even started to snore. How could this be possible? The emperor had never been able to fall asleep before. The maid could not believe what she was seeing. She asked Lillian, "His Majesty will not wake up soon, right?" "Of course not. Lillian will control it. 6 hours should not be a problem." Lillian's special hypnotic ability was something that the women of the Macquarie family had received as a gift from a fairy godmother 200 years ago. This blessing has a special power. Just a single kiss can make a person sleep peacefully. This special ability is only passed to women, not men, and it lasts for their entire life. Seeing that there was finally a person who could treat His Majesty, the maid quickly thanked Lillian for her help. Meanwhile, Lillian saw it was getting late, and Lillian was not yet home, so she began to feel very worried. Hearing a sound outside the door, She turned and saw that Lillian had finally returned home. Raylan hurried to her and said, "Father is very angry with you. Did you just go out to play? Or did you go to see the Emperor?" Lillian answered, "I am not that childish. I am only protecting the people that I must protect. You should not worry." Back in her room, Raylan felt that Lillian had changed into a different person. What could be the reason? A servant nearby looked down on Lillian, thinking that she had finally done one useful thing. Hearing someone speaking badly about Lillian, Raylan angrily called for all of the maids to come over to her. This had been the most tiring day since Lillian transmigrated here. She was too tired to clean her room, so she just slept. Raylan came to Lillian's room, saw the mess, and asked, "Since when do the maids not clean this room?" Because Lillian is an illegitimate child, she has always had to do everything for herself. Raylan had always protected Lillian, so when she heard this, she became very furious and immediately fired the maid who was responsible. Raylan said with tears in her eyes, "How can I stand to let you go to that tyrant?" Going to the palace was Lillian's own choice, for Raylan's happiness and to stop the family's ruin. She wanted to change the original story's ending, so it was necessary for her to go to the Emperor's side. The handsome and arrogant Emperor could not sleep again after he had killed the witch. Today, he finally met the one person who could cure his sleeplessness. The Emperor could not wait to take Lillian by the hand and go back to the palace. He had never felt that his bedroom was so far away. With a loud bang, the Emperor entered the room and immediately started to take off all his clothes. Taking off his outer clothes would be fine, but why was he stripping so completely? Lillian immediately felt that she was too embarrassed to look directly at the Emperor. The Emperor understood Lillian's thoughts with just a single glance and said to her, "Do not overthink this. I only want to be able to sleep more comfortably." Lillian replied to him, "Your Majesty, would it be all right if I stepped outside for a moment?" How could the Emperor possibly stand to let Lillian leave him? It was just that this scene was much too embarrassing for Lillian to watch directly. She was feeling too shy to look. She just wanted to find a crack in the floor, to hide inside and relieve her embarrassment. The Emperor grabbed her and turned Lillian's head away. "If you feel embarrassed, then simply do not look." The Emperor sat on the side of the bed and asked, "Can you hypnotize me now?" "Of course, but it is too much pressure for me when your Majesty does not close your eyes." Lillian slowly walked toward the Emperor, just as she was about to hypnotize him. Then, with a loud crash, she somehow fell to the ground. Do not worry, because the Emperor immediately caught Lillian in his arms and would not permit her to escape again. Lillian was very confused. She had never tried to leave before when the Emperor was falling asleep. That is true, but the Emperor has very strong issues with control. Even when he is asleep, he does not want Lillian to leave his side. The most important thing is that Lillian cannot resist him. She had no other choice. Lillian could only lean forward and give the Emperor a direct kiss on his forehead. This was before the Emperor was able to finish asking her, "Where are you going?" He was already far too sleepy to keep his eyes open. The Emperor sweetly drifted off into dreamland. When the maid came into the room, she looked completely confused and full of disbelief. Lillian quickly said she was about to suffocate and begged for help. The maids in the room used all of their strength to pull open the Emperor's hands. One maid said, "You cannot die, because only you are able to cure His Majesty's sleeplessness." Then she took Lillian to the guest bedroom so she could rest. The maid kept asking, "Do you need to wash up? Do you need to have fresh bedding? Do you like these curtains?" Lillian asked, "Are you afraid that I will not be satisfied? Or am I just overthinking this?" In reality, the maids simply wanted Lillian to stay at the palace for a longer time. This was because, ever since Lillian first entered the palace, the Emperor had completely changed. He even started to smile more. He no longer gets angry if a servant makes a mistake. The maids' lives became much easier than before. For this reason, they all wanted Lillian to stay there, and Lillian also found that she liked it there too. The people who were there were truly and genuinely kind to her. The maid took her for a relaxing walk in the garden. When she saw the Emperor approaching them, Lillian asked him, "Can I please stay here for a few more days? I will get scolded if I return home now." The Emperor wished that Lillian would choose to stay with him forever. He asked her directly, "Will you help me sleep again tonight?" The answer from her was definitely a yes. At that moment, someone arrived to see His Majesty. Lillian turned and was surprised to see that it was her brother. What was her brother doing here at the palace? The emperor, who was cursed by the witch, could never sleep again. On the night before Lillian went to the palace, Raylan told their brother she had been dating her lover for a year and a half. Her brother understood her situation. She did not dare tell their father because she was very afraid. But Raylan could not stand to let Lillian worry about her. Their father became ill because of this, and Lillian had still not returned home, so she asked their brother to visit the palace and bring Lillian back home. Of course he could do that. Here, Lillian was walking in the back garden, looking even more beautiful than all the flowers around her. The emperor was also secretly watching her preferences, making plans to use them to keep her with him forever. The emperor thought about simply tying her up with a rope. Lillian suddenly turned around and asked, "Your Majesty, do you like flowers?" The emperor did not like flowers at all, but he remembered what the maid beside him had told him before. If you want to keep Lillian, you must please her, or you can just hold her tightly while you sleep. Luckily, Lillian has a very good personality, and she is kind, so he must discover a way to win her heart. Thinking about this, His Majesty quickly said, "No, that is not right. I actually do like flowers." The maid thought, "Is there anyone more straightforward than His Majesty?" Lillian was so happy to hear that His Majesty also liked them. At that moment, Lillian's brother arrived to take her home. As soon as the emperor heard that she was leaving, he pulled her into his arms. He was like an unhappy child, which made even the maid afraid to look. Her brother quickly said, "Your Majesty, Lillian is a young lady from the Macquarie family. She is not yet married, so constantly visiting the palace will damage her reputation." The emperor asked her softly, "Do you truly want to leave me? You promised you would help me sleep. But why did this sound so easy to misunderstand?" Her brother heard this, and even though he was smiling, he was filled with rage on the inside. Seeing that the situation was not right, Lillian said, "It is just helping His Majesty get to sleep." Her brother then said, "After you left our home, Father became ill." After hearing this, Lillian wanted to go home right away. His Majesty took Lillian's hand once again and asked her, "Are you going to abandon me?" Of course, Lillian would not do that, but she needed to go home for now, and would come back in the evening. His Majesty had no other choice but to say, "I will send someone to pick you up tonight." Would Lillian be able to come back to the palace after she went home? The emperor had just met the girl who could cure his sleeplessness, but now he had to watch her leave helplessly. Back at her home, her brother took Lillian to see their father. Although it was different from the original story, their father, who had barely survived, did not get a good ending either. Seeing Lillian was full of guilt, both her brother and her sister said that no one blamed her, as their father's health was already very poor. However, their outcomes are completely different now, and their expressions seem much more relaxed. Her brother pulled Lillian and Raylan into the hall for a quiet conversation. Her brother asked Lillian, "Do you really want to continue seeing His Majesty? If this continues, you will eventually develop feelings and get married to him. Do not think it is so simple. Entering the palace is like going into the deep sea. Why won't you reconsider?" The changes in the emperor were not just noticed by the maids. Lillian could see them as well, so she decided she would handle whatever happens. Her brother and sister both praised Lillian for being so sensible. She had always been that way from the start. Her brother said to her, "This will always be your home. If the emperor ever tries to harm you, just come home. You are always welcome here." With her family's love and care, Lillian felt overjoyed. Meanwhile, the emperor was still thinking, will Lillian come to the palace tonight as she promised? Such frequent visits to the palace would surely cause a lot of gossip. It would be much better to just have her stay. At that exact moment, Lillian had already arrived just outside the emperor's door. As soon as she entered the room, she heard the emperor talking to himself. "Lillian, do you want to marry me?" Lillian thought this method of proposing was truly unheard of. The emperor saw Lillian smiling and wondered if he had done something wrong. Of course not. When was the emperor ever wrong? Then the emperor took Lillian's hand and asked her, "Are you willing to marry me?" Did things have to move this quickly? Lillian had always wanted to experience the story of a powerful CEO falling in love with her. So of course, she was willing. This was not because the emperor was a genius at romance, but because he was a complete beginner. But Lillian stated her condition that it would only be valid for 1 year. The emperor was confused. Why only 1 year? Did she think he was a frivolous man? Or did she not trust him? It was neither. It was because Lillian knew the emperor would fall for the original female lead, Sarah, so she avoided the question, saying, "Who knows? We both might meet our true love in the future." The emperor still felt that Lillian did not trust him, As people say, everything has its match. Even an emperor cannot escape this. Would the emperor agree to her terms? How should one handle a powerful but romantically clueless emperor who is falling in love with you? Even the emperor has his own moments of helplessness. Lillian said, "If your majesty does not want to, then I will go home immediately." How could the emperor dare to say anything now? Then the emperor wrote up an official agreement. After all, there was still 1 full year. He had Lillian sign it right away to stop her from backing out. Tell me, doesn't the emperor seem to act like a child? You can be the judge? Lillian also signed her name without any hesitation. They agreed they would be faithful to each other for 1 year. This way, Lillian living in the palace would not cause any gossip. Lillian also took on the emperor's daily sleeping needs. It was a perfect situation for both of them. Then the emperor said, "We will hold the wedding as soon as it is possible. From this point on, they would just need to take care of each other for the next year." The emperor returned to his study, feeling completely puzzled by the situation. Lillian signed so easily. Why did she not want any kind of reward? She wanted no payment and no honor for her family either. It seemed that she was not looking forward to marrying the emperor. Otherwise, she would not have signed a 1-year contract. The emperor wondered, could there have been a problem with my method of proposing? At this time, his subordinate, Count Ilan, requested a meeting to thank His Majesty for his military support. That was how the rebellion was stopped. The emperor had various rewards of rare treasures, which moved Count Ilan to tears. Then the emperor asked him, "You are married, correct? How did you propose?" Having to ask a subordinate about this was truly incomprehensible. Seeing the emperor was about to become angry, he knew he had to tell the truth. His own proposal had been old-fashioned. He just prepared a gorgeous and brilliant large bouquet of flowers. Then, in front of many people, he expressed his deep love to his wife, but forgot all the lines he had prepared. He only said, "Soraya, please marry me." That was all. The emperor found this to be really boring and asked, "What if you proposed by only saying, 'Do you want to marry me?' How is that? With no gifts and just that one sentence? Of course you would get dumped." Hearing this answer, the emperor felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His mind went completely blank. Today, Lillian was at home practicing her swordplay. Then she saw a tall, straight figure in the distance. My goodness, is His Majesty learning and applying things so quickly? He came before Lillian holding a huge bouquet. Lillian thought, he is not going to propose to me again, is he? The emperor knelt on one knee and said with sincerity, "Lillian, I want to express my true heart to you." Lillian thought, please do not say what comes next. Don't say it. How could a romance beginner not say it? Then the emperor said, "Do you want to marry me?" Lillian was truly speechless. Was this what they called a straightforward guy? Could she just cry right now? The emperor's next changes would exceed all of your imagination. The powerful and direct emperor was actually rated with -100 points by the girl that he likes. The emperor revealed his deep regret. Now he was shouting for the maid to come into the room. This came with a loud crash. The emperor told the maid how he had proposed and asked what went wrong. The maid truly had a headache. Why on earth did he use that method? But now the most important thing was figuring out how to fix this situation. The maid asked him what the young lady's reaction had been. It was the first time the emperor had ever felt so embarrassed. How could he mention the -100 points? Although the maid had experienced many big situations, this problem was proving to be very tricky. But she could only comfort him by saying, it can still be saved. Since she comes every single day to help you sleep, there is still a chance. You must apologize and tell her that you did not mean to embarrass her. Meanwhile, her brother was asking Lillian, "Do you really want to marry him?" Lillian calmly replied to him, "He is just far too impatient, but he cannot damage your reputation, even if he is in a big hurry." Before he could finish speaking, an attendant said the emperor sent someone. How could her brother let Lillian go alone now? What did sending someone to get her at this time mean? It was still broad daylight. Her brother really could not feel at ease and insisted on going with Lillian. This was because, for him, protecting Lillian was his solemn duty. As soon as they entered the palace, the emperor apologetically said to her, "Sorry." This was because his maid Hannah had said, "If you do not say it now, you probably will not get another chance." Lillian asked him in confusion, "Who is Hannah?" Hannah is the maid who stands beside the emperor and gives him advice. Lillian laughed. The emperor really is a beginner at romance, isn't he? What can you do when straightforward guys simply do not understand romance? The emperor followed up with, "When are we getting married?" Her brother could not believe his own ears. The emperor had already made a private agreement with Lillian to get married. At this moment, Lillian was on the emperor's side. Marrying him was only a matter of time. It was just a little early. Her brother truly could not understand and asked, "Is this really just a little?" Since the emperor's presence was inconvenient, her brother wanted to speak with Lillian by himself. The emperor had no reason that he could refuse and could only agree. But he really could not help wanting to listen. He will not hit Lillian, will he? Thinking this to himself, the emperor actually started to eavesdrop on them. What would the emperor be able to hear? Even the emperor will eavesdrop for the girl he likes and then complain that the palace's soundproofing is much too poor. Since it was inconvenient to talk with the emperor present, her brother had to take his sister outside. He repeatedly told her, "Let Lillian think it over very carefully." The emperor worried he might argue with Lillian and could not stop himself from eavesdropping. Hearing Lillian constantly praising him, he could not help but feel a little happy on the inside. When her brother asked, "Don't tell me you have fallen in love with the emperor," Lillian could only reply, "I just don't dislike him for now." But he is such an unromantic and clueless emperor. What do you like about him? The emperor broke out in a nervous sweat when he heard this. Haha, do you even need to ask me that? The simplest reason is that he is just so handsome. Of course, it is his good looks. After going back to his room, the emperor had Hannah prepare cucumber slices for him. The emperor, who had never cared about his appearance, was suddenly acting abnormal, which really puzzled Hannah. Did the emperor need to spell it out for her? Of course. There was someone that he wanted to please. When Lillian came to the room to look for the emperor, she saw him glowing and appearing full of confidence. Just as Lillian was about to help the emperor get to sleep, the emperor asked her, "Haven't you noticed? My face looks different than it usually does." Lillian thought that there was nothing different. There was no dirt or anything else. The emperor hopelessly turned his head away from her. Lillian probably would never be able to guess what the emperor meant. Back at home, Lillian was taken by her brother to play in the orchard. He was still hinting that Lillian should reconsider her marriage to His Majesty. But Lillian liked exactly this kind of single-minded, not-so-smart, handsome guy. Seeing some stains on Lillian's clothes, the emperor thought that she went out for a wild outing. He got jealous. "You are going to be someone's wife. Do not casually go out with other people." Seeing the emperor actually suspected her, Lillian used this opportunity to tease him. "Today, I saw many good-looking beauties, each one young and tender. I could not help but want to take a bite." At that moment, the emperor probably felt the strong urge to strangle Lillian. Would the emperor be commanding, or would he try to please Lillian next? Love has a magical power. It can turn a former tyrant emperor into a tender and considerate person. Lillian told the emperor that she saw many good-looking beauties. She was still absorbed in the memory. She had so much fun. It was a truly eye-opening experience. They were so tender and cute. I could not help taking a bite. The emperor was so angry he could barely speak clearly. "But you are going to marry me." Before the emperor could speak, Lillian said directly to him, "What are you thinking about?" "I was talking about the orchard. You were sulking for no good reason, so I thought I would cheer you up." The emperor could not pretend nothing happened and awkwardly said, "I misunderstood." Seeing the emperor being so honest with her, Lillian gave him a chance to make up for his mistake. Lillian said she would come see the emperor early tomorrow. He had to make her happy within 1 hour. The conditions are no sudden proposals, and she will not accept any weird gifts. If he breaks this rule, she will turn around, go home, and tear up their signed contract. Hearing this, the emperor broke out in a sweat and came to his senses, saying, "Then I have a condition as well. You are never allowed to see anyone who is more handsome than me." This was not just a straightforward emperor, but also an extremely jealous one. Then the emperor called his maid advisor and asked, "What should you do to spend an hour with a girl?" Normal couples would probably eat steak and have some dessert together. "It is that simple. The maid will prepare it for you." But the emperor looked reluctant to do this. The reason was that the cookies were too cute. "The only one I admire is His Majesty. Not even the walls get my respect." But it was too late to remake them now, because Lillian had already arrived. After seeing such cute cookies, Lillian completely forgot about the emperor's existence. How could the emperor possibly tolerate this? He sentenced the cookies to death. He broke them in half and ate all of their heads. Am I the only one who cannot help but laugh at the emperor right now? The royal food was also served to them. It looked very appetizing. The emperor remembered Count Elon, saying that he must speak sweet words to her. The emperor said embarrassingly, "Lillian, I only have eyes for you." This completely scared the maid into screaming. Was this still that same tyrant? It was too abnormal. The maid kept backing away. "I want to carve my name into your heart and love only you forever." The maid, who had not left yet, was so scared that she dropped the plate, smashing it to pieces. Lillian was also stunned. The emperor really did not know what he had done wrong this time. Recently, there had been a lot of gossip in the palace about the emperor. They said the emperor's personality had changed dramatically because of love's influence. It seemed to be true. Lillian slowly stood up and said, "I have a meeting tomorrow, so I will not be able to come." The person that Lillian was meeting was named Steen, who was also the ultimate villainess in the original story. The former tyrant emperor's personality had changed dramatically due to love's influence, all because he fell in love with the protagonist, Lillian. The person, Steen, that Lillian came to see had a straightforward personality and always spoke her mind. She had willingly become a villainess in the original story after Steen offended Sarah and made an enemy of her. Lillian thought that Sarah would not arrive for another year, so she should try to befriend Steen first. Lillian ate cookies in big bites and did not care about her image. Steen said, directly looking at how she was eating them, "Have you never eaten cookies before?" Lillian kept smiling and said that this was her first time visiting the mansion. At this moment, Count Elon came to find Steen and said she used love to make the emperor no longer a tyrant. The emperor was pleased, so he survived, she said. Lifesaver. Seeing Lillian's innocent appearance and her lack of scheming, Steen thought she probably would not mind her sharp tongue like other people did. After the other young ladies had left, Steen called out to Lillian and asked her, "Do you truly want to become the empress? What are you thinking?" Of course, there is no doubt about it. Suddenly, Lillian discovered someone was following them in the bushes. Before Steen was able to react, Lillian went right up and gave 2 slaps. When women fight, they pull hair. She dragged him out and asked Steen, "Do you know him?" It turns out he was just paparazzi with a loose mouth. He thought that Steen and Lillian being together meant she was interested in women. Hearing this, Lillian immediately flew into a rage. With a quick pounce, she completely immobilized the paparazzi. With a loud snap, his arm broke and he fell down, unable to get back up. Steen had never seen such a cool girl before. Her heart would not stop pounding. "It is not that I am blushing from an injury. It is because you were so attractive just now." Meanwhile, the emperor was listening to Count Elon's tips for chasing a wife. He then put them into action. He had Lillian accompany him out to the courtyard. He brought out the gift he had prepared, cookies, made by the emperor's own hands. He was getting embarrassed, but Lillian began eating them one after another. Loving someone can truly make you become so attentive to all the details. Even a tyrant can become a warm person. The emperor helped wipe the cookie crumbs from Lillian's mouth. In this environment, they could even look up at the many stars that were filling the sky. The emperor was afraid that Lillian might be unhappy with something. At this moment, Lillian felt very grateful for the emperor's efforts for her. She said softly to the emperor, "Today has been the happiest day for both of us so far. It was such a romantic atmosphere. Plus, there was such an innocent and beautiful Lillian." The emperor had completely fallen for her and could not escape. He truly hoped that he could live like this with Lillian every single day from now on. This is the most devoted and caring emperor I have ever seen. Ever since Lillian praised his cookies as being delicious, the emperor had been learning how to make them for Lillian regularly. Look, today he made apple jam. As for this black-colored thing, I still cannot figure out what it is. The emperor eagerly awaited approval from his beloved, even if it was just the simple words, "It's delicious." Lillian said quietly, "Not bad." Hearing Lillian praise him, the emperor was super happy on the inside. Back at home, Lillian was playing games with her brother. Then, Steen suddenly came outside looking for Lillian. Seeing that Lillian liked these cookies last time, she made some more. "These were all made by me personally. No poison." They chatted with each other. Steen asks, "It is rare to see girls practicing swordplay. Is this your hobby?" "Not really. Swordsmanship is our family's tradition." Steen had also loved practicing swordplay since she was a child. and wanted to become a righteous female warrior. But her father did not allow it, saying men like gentle women, and learning that would make her too difficult to manage. Her brother says, "You are married now. You do not have to worry about those things anymore." But this seemed to be difficult. For girls, looking at Steen's hands, it really would be hard to learn well. "But it is okay," Lillian said. "If you do not mind, I can teach you." Hearing that Lillian could teach her swordplay, Steen became super excited. Meanwhile, the Emperor was learning how to make other pastries again. So loving someone means being willing to learn anything that you do not know for them. This is regardless of status or anything else. The cookies were almost ready. The Emperor felt more nervous than when he was handling state affairs, but it did not look very successful. Then, Lillian heard a knock and got up to walk to the door. She saw His Majesty carrying his beloved little basket, which was filled with all of the Emperor's love. Seeing it was the Emperor, Steen quickly went to pay her respects to him. But why was there such a huge difference between these two foods? Steen picked up the burnt cookies and said with disdain, "Are these even edible?" Lillian said with a smile, "Burnt food being cancer-causing is just a rumor. It tastes pretty good." She then started eating the burnt food that she could actually eat. This was unbearable to watch. But how awkward it was. One bite revealed the fire was too high, and it only cooked the surface. The Emperor grabbed Lillian's hand and asked, "You have not been forcing yourself to eat my cooking this whole time, have you? It is actually very hard to swallow. You are just pretending that it tastes good, right?" Lillian said kindly, "The texture is not bad. I understand the thoughtful gift that you prepared." This made the Emperor secretly determined to cook them thoroughly tomorrow, and also make them taste better. When leaving, Steen invited Lillian, hoping they could have a pajama party in a few days, wearing pajamas and chatting all night. Lillian happily replied, "Great, I will definitely come." The Emperor's murderous gaze was staring straight at Lillian. "No way, you absolutely cannot go." Lillian belonged to the Emperor alone. Next, the Emperor was going to abuse his great power for personal revenge. For his beloved, the Emperor hid under his blanket and cried silently for the very first time. Steen invited Lillian to a pajama party, but the powerful Emperor would not let Lillian go. But he did not dare to stop her directly, so he had to work through the Count. Count Ilan thinks his advice caused the Emperor's attempt to win a wife to fail, but it is all right. But in the blink of an eye, the Emperor's expression completely changed. "Right now, I just want to burn your house to the ground." The poor Count still did not know what was happening, and asked the Emperor, "What is wrong?" The petty Emperor had demolished the Count's house. "Let us see how your wife holds a pajama party now." The Count suddenly realized what was happening. He remembered his wife had mentioned yesterday that she was inviting Lillian over to play. So it was for a pajama party, but his wife had been really looking forward to it. He could not go back on his word either. What should he do now? The Emperor also said, otherwise just have them move to the remote wilderness. As long as it was the Emperor's decree, the Count would have no complaints, even if it meant returning to his own lands. But Lillian was so clever. If they were to move now, she would definitely figure out that this was the Emperor's idea. Besides, the friendship between girls is different from romantic feelings. They are just friends. While Your Majesty and Lillian have a lifelong marriage, the Emperor found this to be quite reasonable. "I was being too hasty. Let her be happy." Lillian had a great time at the pajama party, but the Emperor was even more eagerly preparing for their upcoming wedding. He had originally thought that after their marriage, he could hold Lillian while sleeping every single day. But who would have known? Lillian would say they should sleep in separate rooms after getting married. The Emperor was about to cry. He was very angry, but he did not dare say anything. Seeing that the Emperor was unhappy, Lillian thought she was causing him trouble. The Emperor looked sincerely at Lillian and said, "Haven't you ever thought about kissing me? Don't you want to do anything else besides helping me sleep? You are about to become my bride, and will often be in and out of my room. Do we have to always maintain this situation forever?" Naive Lillian thought the Emperor treated her well only because of her ability to help him sleep. Little did she know that the Emperor had already fallen hopelessly in love with her. The Emperor turned away, shedding the first royal tear of his entire life. The Emperor hopelessly gripped the blanket very tightly. He just wanted to receive love in return. This Emperor curled up in the corner, silently crying in sorrow, simply because he did not want to lose the person he loved most. Right now, he did not care about any of the rules. He just wanted to live as his truest self. Whenever he thought about how Lillian would break free from the palace rules in a year and would ask him for a divorce, leaving him to find her own happiness, his heart ached so much that he could barely breathe. What reason would he have to keep Lillian by then? He thought about how Lillian could open her heart completely to Steen. Why could she not open up to him? The Emperor did not understand why he had suddenly become like this. All because of one woman. Soon after, his subjects came to court, reporting to the Emperor about the scale of the wedding and how much of a dowry should be given to the new empress. The Emperor wanted nothing less than the most magnificent ceremony, wishing he could give everything that he had to Lillian. Meanwhile, Lillian was trying on her wedding dress, accompanied by Raylan and Steen. Lillian looked so beautiful and radiant at this moment, just like Snow White from a fairy tale. Steen just felt it was such a pity for someone as beautiful as Lillian. Raylan also wanted Lillian to live happily and joyfully for the rest of her life. The Emperor's dowry gifts for Lillian had already been delivered to her home. They were all gleaming gold bars. Seeing so many dowry gifts, her brother already understood Lillian's place within the Emperor's heart, but her brother still could not bear to let Lillian go. At this moment, the maids were all discussing how Lillian's arrival had greatly changed the Emperor, and the palace atmosphere had become more humane. At this time, Prince Charlene was hiding in the corner and thinking, "This is absolutely unreasonable. Does scum like him truly deserve love?" Because the woman he had once loved committed suicide after being rejected by the Emperor, he held a deep resentment. If he could just win Lillian over to his side, then everything would be much easier. On this day, Lillian was practicing her swordsmanship at home, just as usual. Then, Charlene approached from a distance, trying every single method to win her over. But Lillian ignored him completely from the start to the finish, rejecting him with a variety of excuses. Even Charlene's teleportation magic was thrown away by her before it could even reach her hands. Anonymous gifts with hidden power, like magic stones, were also seen through by her. His attempts to bribe maids to poison her also failed, and his plans to ambush with bandits for a kidnapping did not work either. Charlene had finally run out of all his patience. It seemed that he would have to deal with Lillian personally. Finally, the Emperor and our heroine's wedding day arrived. The thrilling moment was about to begin. Steen was also invited to the wedding to witness this happy and touching moment. He was Raylan's boyfriend, and this was actually his first time meeting Lillian. This was though he had heard about her often. He was here to offer his blessings to them, but more importantly, he was determined to catch the bouquet so that he could marry Raylan very soon. This embroidered handkerchief was his wedding gift to Lillian. The wedding had been moved up a whole month earlier. Every day had been torture for the Emperor, so moving it up was understandable. The wedding was held outdoors, witnessed and blessed by many friends and family. However, her brother simply could not control himself. He had soaked through 5 or 6 handkerchiefs with his tears, and it was impressive that he was still standing. The wedding was extremely lavish and grand under everyone's gaze. Her Majesty, the Empress, entered in her gorgeous wedding dress, a beauty that captivates for ages, stunning enough to topple nations. The distinguished and elegant groom was now more shy, nervous, and excited than anything else. They could finally get married. The wedding ceremony was relatively simple. Once the Empress walked down the red carpet to the throne, the Emperor just needed to place the crown upon her head. For Lillian, this dress was really difficult to walk in, and she accidentally stumbled. The Emperor never took his eyes off Lillian, and seeing this small detail, he rushed forward in quick strides and managed to catch her. At this moment, they gazed into each other's eyes as if they were the only 2 people in the world. Holding her felt like having the entire universe. The ceremony was finally about to begin, and the Emperor could not wait any longer. Actually, Lillian's heart was stirring at this moment as well. She just did not realize it herself. Their friends below all cheered for them. So romantic. Make sure to throw the bouquet to us. Only her brother shouted at the top of his lungs, "No, Lillian, do not leave the Duke's house." The sacred moment arrived as the priest asked the Empress, "Through sickness and health, until death do you part, do you wish to spend your life with His Majesty?" At this moment, Lillian was shy, happy, and willing. "Do you vow to fulfill your duties as Empress and wife, and to truly cherish His Majesty?" "Of course I do." The same question was asked to His Majesty. "Do you vow to fulfill your duties as Emperor and husband, to love and care for the Empress?" Absolutely. This is what the Emperor had longed for. Unfortunately, even though Lillian's heart had already been stirred, she did not yet understand love. She was still thinking the Emperor had married her only for her hypnotic ability. Next came the exchange of the rings between the bride and the groom. The emperor knelt on one knee, took his beloved's hand and kissed it passionately. Next, how should he embrace and kiss Lillian, who possessed such hypnotic abilities? This was the most romantic, sweet, and grand wedding I have ever seen. The emperor and Lillian's wedding ceremony had only one final kiss left while embracing each other, but the emperor was very worried. If he kissed Lillian with her hypnotic powers, he would fall asleep. How could he fall asleep on his own wedding day? Lillian saw the emperor's concern and told him to relax. Lillian stepped forward and kissed the emperor. The emperor finally got to kiss the person that he loved the most. Her rosy, soft lips made the emperor reluctant to let go for a very long time. But how was it that he did not fall asleep this time? What was going on? What a coincidence it was. The hypnotic magic becomes ineffective when kissing on the lips. This is why Lillian always kissed his forehead to help the emperor sleep. After the ceremony, they returned to their room. The emperor could only suppress his inner desires by closing his eyes. Lillian complained that the emperor's clothes were really uncomfortable, and since all the maids had left, she had to trouble His Majesty to help her undress. His Majesty had to comply, though he was secretly delighted inside. Ha! After a tiring day, they could finally lie down and rest. But she could not forget about His Majesty. Lillian said, "Your Majesty, come lie down quickly too. We still need to complete our task for tonight." His Majesty really wanted to. He asked shyly, "Do we really have to do this now?" "Of course. But what does Your Majesty prefer? Do you need to lie down or to sit?" His Majesty was already sweating a lot, his speech becoming unclear. "I think lying down would be better." At this moment, His Majesty's blood pressure must be at least 180, if not 190. In the unusually quiet room, only the emperor's heart could be heard pounding. Lillian's hand slowly reached out toward the emperor. The emperor said gently, "Let's take our time. I will love you forever." Lillian did not understand what the emperor meant, but she was too embarrassed to ask. The emperor saw how calm Lillian's expression was, while he remained in a constant state of tension. Before the emperor could figure out the answer, Lillian hugged him. She said, "I promise to complete the task, and I won't go back on my word." She then kissed the emperor's forehead and wished him sweet dreams. On their wedding night, the emperor had wanted a good conversation, but now he was so sleepy that he could not keep his eyes open. And so their wedding night passed, just like that. Have you ever seen an emperor like this? He did not need Lillian to serve him. Instead, he did everything for her personally. The room was tidied, and all the maids welcomed Her Majesty the Empress. Lillian was getting a little tired, so she asked the maids to escort her back to her bedroom. When she opened the door, Lillian's eyes lit up. The room was so clean she wished that she could live there forever. But she alone knew that she would have to leave in 1 year. Lillian grew tired from walking around and just wanted to lie down for a rest. A maid approached her, saying, "As Empress, you must now choose a personal maid. She is meant to serve you personally. Would Your Majesty like to make the selection yourself?" The profiles of the candidates showed they were all selected from noble backgrounds. However, Lillian preferred commoners from simpler families to avoid complications in the future. After a careful selection process, Lillian pointed to one girl. Her name was Daisy. She had a plain appearance and normal skills, but was the only one Lillian favored. Meanwhile, the emperor finished his state duties and immediately went to see Lillian. When the emperor's mother had lived there before, it had always felt cold and unwelcoming. Since he was the emperor responsible for the nation's future, any laziness on his part resulted in punishment. Now with Lillian here, it was completely different. The place was full of sunshine and overflowing with warm love. When the maid Lucy saw the emperor arrive, she showed some tact and quickly withdrew. Lillian did not feel awkward at all, and could finally relax completely, not treating the emperor like a normal man. The emperor asked with a puzzled look, "Are you feeling unwell?" "Not really," Lillian replied. "I just didn't sleep well." That should not be, the emperor thought, believing his bed was certainly big enough. Silly man. It was not about the bed. It was clearly because his handsome face was far too distracting. Lillian called the emperor over to help him sleep, but he was reluctant to do so. He knew Lillian was tired, so he gave her a full body massage first, starting as he spoke. She could hardly believe this was the emperor. Hearing Lillian's praise about how comfortable it felt, he could not stop. But why was there no response? The massage was so comfortable that Lillian had sweetly fallen into beautiful dreams. This was the first time since the Emperor and Lillian had met that she had fallen asleep first. Because of the witch's curse, the Emperor had hated the night for so many years. That was until he met Lillian. She changed the Emperor and everything else. However, when Lillian woke up in the morning, her shouts could be heard. Her shouting could be heard all the way outside the palace gates. She remembered that she had forgotten to help the Emperor sleep last night and had fallen asleep first. What a mistake. After saying this, Lillian thought about making up for her mistake by helping the Emperor sleep now. But the Emperor thought sleeping now would last over 7 hours and delay his important duties. It was no problem. Lillian could help the Emperor take an afternoon nap simply by kissing his hand. He would then sleep for only 1 hour. So for this brief time, please let him be willful. He possessively held Lillian's hand so she would not leave, and they entered sweet dreams together. The ultimate level of clinginess is wanting you by his side always. Only holding you gives him peace. Her mistake caused the Emperor to lose sleep, so when he requested, "Don't go," Lillian agreed. Lillian readily agreed to his request and gently kissed the back of the Emperor's hand. The Emperor entered dreamland with Lillian by his side. Who knew? His dreams might be all about her. Seeing the Emperor asleep, Lillian felt bored and called for Daisy to bring her a book to pass the time. Who would have guessed Daisy would bring a history book? Lillian had no interest in such things. It was her fault for not being more specific. If she had known, she would have asked Daisy for a romance novel. Lillian opened it and looked at the difficult text. After reading only a few pages, she fell asleep. She fell fast asleep beside the Emperor. After an unknown number of hours had passed, she woke up. Lillian suddenly woke up from her deep slumber, sensing something was wrong. How did she fall asleep on the bed? She had been reading, and she hurriedly sat up. She saw the Emperor was no longer beside her, and quickly asked a maid, who said he had gone to a meeting. Lillian picked up the cloak the Emperor had covered her with, thinking she should return it to him. The maid brought Lillian to the place where the Emperor was holding his official meeting. She overheard the ministers discussing issues about water reconstruction and its associated costs. Lillian thought that she should not disturb the ministers while they were discussing important official matters. The Emperor hurriedly stood up, saying she was not a disturbance at all. He claimed the meeting had actually ended early. The ministers followed his lead, saying they were just chatting. Weren't they treating Lillian like a complete fool? They had just been discussing important issues. The ministers quickly took the hint and departed, followed by the sound of the doors closing. The room became unusually quiet with only the two of them inside, gazing at each other foolishly. Lillian said she only came to return the cloak and would not disturb their important meeting. When he saw that Lillian was about to leave, the Emperor quickly grabbed her hand. "The meeting is over," he said. "Can you please stay with me for a little longer?" The pushy Emperor even wanted Lillian to keep him warm. Looking at his handsome face, how could she refuse? The Emperor immediately grabbed Lillian and held her tightly in his embrace, as if never wanting to let her go. Time seemed to stop at that moment, as they quietly and contentedly rested in each other's arms. Later, Lillian went to the library. As the saying goes, help yourself to abundance. In almost no time at all, Lillian found the exact romance novel she wanted to read. While she was absorbed in her reading, her brother Basti came up behind her and asked a question. "This novel should have many handsome men appearing later, right?" "Naturally." Then Basti gave Lillian a large gift. "I have collected many novels like this, so when you get tired of the Emperor, you can come back." Meanwhile, the Emperor finished work and wanted to find Lillian. But he heard from a maid that Basti came. He had brought many handsome guys. How could the Emperor possibly tolerate something like this? Even the ruler of a nation can secretly rejoice over one compliment, just because it came from his beloved. After hearing that Lillian was reading romance novels, the Emperor instantly became extremely jealous. But he could not say anything about it in front of the maids, so he reluctantly said it was good. "It is good that the Empress loves reading. Take me to see her quickly." The Emperor had not thought about it this much. He was so angry that he was trembling. He looked at the romance novel, thinking to himself, "This is clearly an intentional act." If it were not for her brother interfering, he would already have children with Lillian by now. Perhaps he should find someone to secretly handle him, to stop him from interfering with their relationship's development. The Emperor heard Lillian say the books were brought by Basti to entertain her, and he could not say anything. He remembered how Lillian let him hold her today, thinking they had finally become much closer. It seemed he would need to watch her more closely in the future, or maybe even tie her to his side. Lillian introduced the book to the Emperor. It was about a knight who was secretly in love with his master. Seeing that she enjoyed these novels, the Emperor silently noted her preferences in his heart. The Emperor asked her tentatively, "Do you happen to like this type of guy?" "Of course. If the male lead looked like you, Your Majesty, I would definitely be completely captivated." Hearing this answer, the Emperor asked, puzzled, "This face?" "Yes," she replied. "It is especially handsome." After hearing such high praise, the Emperor was too shy to look directly at Lillian. "Ha ha! Your Majesty, you are the ruler of an entire nation." At that moment, the Emperor felt guilty again. He had just been thinking about tying her to his side, which was too rough. From that day on, the Emperor would ask the maids how things were, and when he heard, "very handsome," he would go. He would go to see Lillian, hoping he might get a few more compliments from her. After hearing a satisfying answer, he would handle his official business, happily saying he would return in the evening. As an empress, she could not be so relaxed every single day. She would inevitably have to attend many social parties, and from these invitations, Lillian selected one party to attend. Meanwhile, a lady named Miss Marion from Basil Fedorov's house was being encouraged by her mother to become famous. Her mother taught her that an innocent appearance was her weapon. The party began, and Lillian had prepared cookies for everyone. Marion found that she greatly admired the Empress's many abilities. Then, Basil, who was beside her, said he had specifically prepared a gift for the Empress. He claimed this green gemstone particularly suited the Empress's unique temperament. The Empress turned to see the gift, and then she suddenly flew into a rage. "What happens to those who covet the Emperor's woman? Are you tired of living?" Lillian directly refused his gift. Lillian bluntly asked Basil, "Your brother wants to become an administrative officer, right? The one named Obertan?" After hearing her say this, Basil was already sweating profusely from his nervousness. Lillian gracefully turned, saying, "Good results are earned through ability. I do not use underhanded methods." As the party continued, Lillian pointed to Marion and said directly, "I would like to hear your thoughts." Marion spoke frankly, "I have only one question for you. What should I do to become good friends with you?" Everyone expected her to fly into a rage. But unexpectedly, Lillian said, "You can visit me at the palace next week." Lillian just wanted to deliberately show Basil that she dislikes pretense and only associates with sincere people. Seeing this, many ladies admitted they also wanted to visit the kind-hearted Empress, hoping to chat with her again. After she had returned to the palace, the maids praised Lillian's unmatched abilities and skills. She controlled the entire party without making anyone feel uncomfortable, and had rejected Basil so gracefully. For the next gathering, Lillian still preferred something that was a bit more elegant. She wanted to put her hair up. This time, people would look at faces first, so being neat was better. After dressing up for the occasion, Lillian was absolutely stunning, almost like a beautiful painting. Just then, the Emperor came to find Lillian and immediately got angry. "Who are you trying to enchant dressed so beautifully?" Lillian felt completely wronged. She had just tidied herself up simply. How is this wrong? The Emperor's heart was a mystery. The Emperor thought that going out looking so pretty would certainly attract unwanted attention, so he decided to accompany her. What he said was not wrong, but why did it sound like something else was going on? They would meet punctually at 3 in the afternoon for the scheduled appointment. The Emperor took the opportunity to kiss Lillian's hand. This was the very first time. Lillian blushed shyly and felt very flustered. Her heart felt complicated in that moment. At the party, Lillian focused intently on the surrounding scenery, listening to the songs of birds. A young man, Master Hubert Callan, was directly attracted by Lillian's beauty and approached her. Lillian did not know how she should respond to his many compliments, so she could only reply to him by saying, "I'm sorry, I am already married." "So what if you're married?" the other person persisted, relentlessly asking, "Could you please tell me your name?" Seeing this scene unfold, Raylan really could not understand what was attractive about this foolish woman. The Emperor walked over angrily and asked, "What are your intentions? You are asking for my wife's name?" Seeing that it was the Emperor, Hubert Callan realized he had made a very grave mistake. The Emperor could no longer suppress his inner rage. "How dare you covet the Emperor's woman? Die!" This man was bold indeed, daring to covet the Emperor's woman, the furious emperor drew his sword. The furious emperor directly drew his sword with the intent to finish off his opponent. Being kind-hearted, Lillian could not bear to watch this scene and stood in front to plead for him. The emperor angrily said to her, "Mercy depends entirely on the person." Lillian could only say he was also a guest she had invited, blaming herself for not recognizing him. However, protecting someone else in front of the emperor would only make him angrier and much more jealous. The emperor, his mind clouded by jealousy, asked, "Have you fallen for him? Why else are you protecting him?" Lillian replied that her taste was not that bad. Hearing her reply, the emperor's anger subsided by half. "You mean he is not as handsome as I am?" Did such an obvious question even need to be asked? "Of course," she said, but Lillian also considered personality. She had no good feelings for those who draw swords at the slightest displeasure. After hearing this, the emperor directly abandoned his thought of killing the man. Within just a few days, gossip about the incident had spread throughout the streets and alleys. The emperor asked the marquis, "How are you handling these things?" The entire city was buzzing with discussions about it. The marquis certainly knew what was happening. Then the emperor asked the most dangerous question, "What do you think of the empress?" The marquis quickly said, "I have no improper thoughts about her." "Are you saying she isn't beautiful?" The marquis said, "No, the empress is very beautiful." The glaring emperor roared, "So you think she is charming?" The marquis was about to get high blood pressure from the emperor. Being his subject was truly hard. Just then, Lillian arrived and asked if he was busy, saying she made food they could eat together. The emperor said gently, "No, I'm not busy." The aggressive ruler instantly became a little kitten. The marquis looked at this man who had once treated human lives as if they were grass. Now he had changed so dramatically for one woman. If he had not seen it, who would believe it? The empress had arrived at such a timely moment because of the marquis's wife. A few hours earlier, the marquis's wife had found Lillian, begging her to save her husband's life. Lillian wondered what excuse she could use to save him without the emperor seeing through her plan. A maid found one of the emperor's undergarments, but taking that would not be quite right. However, they could not find anything else, and making something now seemed far too late. Fortunately, the maid suggested that Lillian could invite the emperor to eat with her, and so, in this way, Lillian saved the life of the marquis. When it was time for the state meeting, the subjects hurried over and saw the emperor and Lillian chatting. Seeing the emperor was about to be busy, Lillian got up. But the emperor said the meeting was over. He then turned with a completely different look on his face to ask the minister a question. How could the minister dare say otherwise? He quickly responded, "Yes, I just came to report on progress." Lillian thought this was far too fake, but the emperor would not admit he was neglecting state affairs for her. Then, the emperor brought out a steak that he had made himself for her. He started feeding it to Lillian, who was very confused. What was this about now? She was the most innocent empress ever, directly asking the emperor, "Do you want to sleep with me?" The emperor fed Lillian the very delicious steak that he had made himself. Surprisingly, the emperor's cooking skills had improved greatly in just a few days. It was very delicious. But Lillian felt the emperor had been strange lately, always doing things unrelated to his official duties. He often made delicious food for her, and then hovered around her constantly. He even helped her get romance novels from the library, although he would not admit it. He also helped her pick out clothes, always feeling as if he was not doing enough. Was he planning to abdicate his throne and become her servant? Seeing Lillian's complete confusion, he asked. The emperor asked, "Is it because it's so delicious? Eat freely. Being chubby is more lovable." Lillian asked, "Why have you been so strange lately? Did you do something wrong to me? Or did you punish Basti?" "Of course not," he replied. "Your brother is alive and kicking." Hearing the emperor's answer, Lillian thought that although he was fierce, he did not lie. But why was he always watching her facial expression so closely? Could it be that he wanted an afternoon nap but was too embarrassed to ask for one? Or did he want more money? But when it came to money, no one had more than the emperor. "Then do you want to sleep with me?" The emperor spit out the tea he had just drank. He then asked Lillian with an incredulous look, "What are you saying right now?" Seeing that the emperor did not object, she asked, "So you really do want to sleep with me?" The blushing emperor did not dare to look directly at Lillian, saying softly, I don't? Is it because you did well but I didn't give you a stamp?" The emperor did not understand the stamp. Lillian explained to him, That is what superiors use to commend their employees for good work. However, there were no stamps available here in this room. Since you want one, I will draw one for you on paper, right? She finished drawing it in just a few strokes. Lillian gave the Emperor her handmade and unique commendation, though it was only a simple piece of paper. But in the Emperor's heart, it was worth its weight in gold, making him feel happy like a small child. In that moment, he looked at Lillian's jade-like and very smooth face. He gently lifted her small face, and his lips fell upon her forehead. At this moment, he was incomparably happy. Even though he kissed her every night to help her sleep, why did his heart still beat so fiercely? Meanwhile, a minister came to the Emperor to deliver the quarterly performance reports. This minister went out and showed off the new stamp on his forehead to all of his companions. He said the Emperor was in a great mood and gave him an exclusive commendation for excellent ministers. Little did he know the true source and origin of this unique commendation. The Emperor had finally welcomed his spring, having received the exclusive stamp that was given by Lillian. Ever since Lillian made the "You're Awesome" stamp for the Emperor, a stamp trend swept through the imperial city. The nearby maids, hearing the stamp idea came from Lillian, all came to ask the Empress for one. Before they could ask, the Emperor arrived, appearing right before Lillian and all of the maids. The thought of the Emperor stamping ministers one by one with a cold face made Lillian find the situation amusing. The Emperor believed ministers should be praised, so they would work more seriously and be more encouraged. The Emperor remembered his forehead was still empty and then asked Lillian to give him a stamp too. Lillian looked at the stamp that was now in the Emperor's hand with a feeling of amusement. "Though you permit it, I am not qualified to evaluate your Majesty," she said to the Emperor. "And I dare not use your official stamp casually?" Saying this, she pushed the Emperor down. "However, I can give you a stamp that is exclusive to you." Lillian softly asked him, "Do you want my special stamp?" This was exactly what the Emperor had been dreaming of receiving. Lillian immediately fulfilled the Emperor's simple wish. This stamp made him feel incomparably happy and very special. He was beaming with so much joy even while he was handling all of his court affairs. The ministers noticed the Emperor's very good mood and asked him what good news there was. Hearing the Emperor say Lillian personally stamped him, they were all envious. The Empress's stamp must be extraordinary, right? A minister then requested if he might have the honor of receiving such a stamp. Hearing this, the Emperor immediately became furious. "How dare you have designs on the Empress's special stamp?" He immediately issued an official edict forbidding that minister from ever entering Lillian's palace again. After finishing his state affairs, he naturally came to find Lillian as the first thing he did. Seeing the Emperor, Lillian asked if there was anything he wanted to say to her now. The Emperor did not know what she was referring to. "It is about the strange edict you issued to the minister. Your will is unfathomable." Seeing that the Emperor was here, Daisy the maid quickly withdrew to attend to her own matters. The Emperor said, "That's because of him. He doesn't even know what kind of stamp you gave me, yet he wants one. How dare he covet anything from you? I am being generous by not having him killed." Meanwhile, after Daisy the maid withdrew, she went to the art room. Having been commissioned by someone, she used her rest time to paint. She had been commissioned by someone and was using her rest time to paint pictures for the Empress. Then she heard a voice praise her from behind. "This is painted so well. Is that me?" Daisy quickly turned around and said, "Thank you, Your Majesty." Seeing it was Lillian, she thought she was in trouble and had been caught this time. The Emperor had just received the stamp and now got a doll made by Lillian herself. He was delighted. After Lillian had helped the Emperor fall asleep, she did not feel sleepy. She thought she should chat with Daisy for a while. Seeing Daisy was still awake, she went in. Who knew that when she opened the door, she would see walls covered in pictures of herself? She could hardly imagine that she would one day become another person's idol. Then a small item on the table caught Lillian's complete attention. "This is so cute," she said, looking at the small doll. Lillian really wanted to make one by hand to give to the Emperor, so she asked Daisy to teach her. Daisy was very happy to help Lillian and brought the materials to teach her how to make it. The Emperor's state affairs today were quite troublesome, making him tired and giving him headaches. But he still habitually rushed to Lillian's palace first, seeing that she had actually fallen asleep already. Could it be possible that she was also completely exhausted today? Before he could react, the small item on the table caught the Emperor's undivided attention. He carefully picked it up and wondered, Did Lillian make this by hand? This is me. But why did she not make someone else? Why did she make me? Could it be? When Lillian finally woke up, she saw the Emperor holding her unfinished gift for him. The Emperor asked her very gently, "Did you make this figure of me by hand?" "Of course," she replied to him, "but I have not finished it yet." The Emperor looked at the figure of himself that Lillian had made, treasuring it very dearly. Even though it was not finished, in the Emperor's eyes, it was already perfect. This was something no artist could create. It was the kind of joy that only Lillian could bring to the Emperor. Having received such a special gift, of course, he had to show it off in front of his ministers. This gift was practically blinding the ministers. If not now, when was the right time to flatter him? The ministers showered Lillian with various praises, picking only the nicest things they could possibly say. Being able to marry the Empress is truly the nation's greatest fortune and blessing. However, their praise was nothing compared to the head maid. When the head maid spoke, you knew she was an expert. The head maid said, "Shouldn't you also make a gift for the Empress to show gratitude?" A professional suggestion is different. The Emperor greatly agreed with the head maid's suggestion, which was better than ministers who only flatter. But what kind of gift should he give her? How about making the same thing? They would make a perfect pair. The Emperor thought that this was a truly perfect idea for a gift, but it was easier said than done. After working for a very long time, this is what he made. If he gave what he made to Lillian, would she not want to divorce him immediately? Who would have thought the Emperor escaped being called a love novice, only to face his own clumsy hands? One of his ministers then gave the Emperor a very good idea for a gift. However, it would require the Emperor to lower his standards significantly. He wondered about lowering his standards. The Emperor, with his extremely strong pride, actually knelt before Lillian, just so he could give her a small gift. Today, state affairs were finished early. The Emperor, as was his usual habit, came to find Lillian. He thought they had not gone for a walk since getting married. "I would like to take a walk with you today." Faced with the Emperor's sudden request, Lillian happily agreed to go with him. On this gentle evening, they walked slowly under the starry sky. The feeling was truly wonderful. But the Emperor's eyes only contained Lillian. He remembered the last time they sat here chatting, when he had given Lillian the cookies he baked. All of the happy scenes from that day floated before his eyes. The Emperor looked at this innocent and truly beautiful girl who was standing before him. She had already become the single most important person in his entire life. Suddenly, the Emperor actually knelt down on one knee, which completely shocked Lillian. In the original novel, the Emperor has very strong pride. He did not even kneel when confessing his love to Sarah. The Emperor, with eyes that were full of sincerity, wanted to give Lillian a special gift. On this anklet, the Emperor had written his own name. He personally helped Lillian put it on her ankle. Lillian had always been the one giving him gifts, so the Emperor felt he should naturally return the favor. The Emperor was afraid his gift would not suit Lillian's taste. But these were needless worries. She absolutely loved it. When she saw that the Emperor had injured his hand while baking for her, Lillian felt heartbroken. "Your Majesty holds such a high position. You don't need to do everything yourself and get injured," Lillian said, full of guilt. The Emperor said to her very casually, "It does not matter, as long as you like it and are happy." Lillian took the Emperor's hand with heartache and kissed it deeply, wishing only for his speedy recovery. The Emperor returned to his room and had a maid search for a bottle of precious miracle medicine. Since the Emperor loves collecting, this bottle of medicine was priceless. One dose guarantees complete healing from any wound. The Emperor had never been willing to use it before. But he was eager this time, because Lillian had kissed his hand. He thought that once his hand healed, she would definitely kiss it again. He did not hesitate and drank the medicine. It was just that miraculous. His hand was instantly returned to a state of perfect health. The maid reminded the Emperor, "Should I arrange a hand massage for you now?" This was because the ball was about to begin, and Prince Charlene's birthday was also coming up very soon. "But, Your Majesty, you must find a way to make the Queen choose you for the very first dance." "Although the Queen will probably not refuse your request, Your Majesty, this is a very good chance. This is a chance to bring you two closer. As long as the relationship grows, you will do anything." He would do anything without complaint. The Emperor actually felt threatened by another woman's presence in this situation. Basti came to find Lillian, asking if she had finished the book, hoping he could help find more handsome men. However, Lillian had something more important for her brother to handle. She had discovered someone was stalking Steen. After he understood the situation, Basti reassured Lillian that he could solve the problem in just a few minutes. He then captured the stalker and handed the man over to Lillian for her official judgment. But this person was too cunning, constantly insisting that it was Steen who had seduced him first. Obviously, Lillian did not believe him, shouting for the guards. He was immediately sent to prison. Steen was very grateful to Lillian for helping her catch the stalker. She hoped to hold Lillian's delicate hands. Hands that often grip swords feel very hard. In comparison, Lillian's hands felt very soft to Steen. Steen heard the Emperor loves Lillian's kisses, so she hoped Lillian could kiss her hand to see if she would fall asleep. Just as the two of them embraced and were about to kiss before she fell asleep, they were spotted by the Emperor at the door. His petty jealousy immediately acted up, and he asked coldly, "Lady Steen, why are you here right now? What are you doing with my wife?" Steen calmly replied to him that she was just asking Her Majesty about something important. Seeing that the tension in the room was building, Lillian quickly said, "We have pretty much finished talking." The Emperor extended his hand, wanting Lillian to come with him and attend the upcoming ball. Actually, the Emperor was very nervous at this moment, because he was afraid that Lillian might refuse him. However, Lillian immediately took the Emperor's hand, which gave him enough reassurance for the moment. But why did the Emperor still feel as if he was caught in a love triangle? The Emperor brought Lillian to his room, where she spotted the doll she made placed on his daily work desk. Seeing the Emperor's hesitant manner, Lillian asked him directly, "Is there something that you want to say?" The Emperor adjusted his tie and asked her, "Is there anything different about me today?" He was too tongue-tied to speak properly, so he used gestures instead of words. Please forgive the Emperor for being so unfamiliar with this. He was learning everything step by step. Speaking of the Emperor's clumsy hands, it was quite impressive that he could learn these gestures. Lillian even joked with the Emperor, telling him that her eyes were too poor to see clearly. To what extent must a ruler care for someone to follow behind and observe their every single move? The Emperor asked with a serious expression, "Are you really planning to kiss Lady Steen's hand?" Lillian thought it was not a big deal. She was willing to help anyone who wanted to sleep. The Emperor got truly angry. "Are you serious?" he asked her. "If she is willing to fall asleep, you would kiss her hand just like that?" Hearing the Emperor's question, Lillian found him to be completely and totally unreasonable. After pretending to be angry and leaving, Lillian went to find Steen to complain about the Emperor's unreasonable behavior. Little did she know the Emperor could not let it go and had been following both of them. While the two women happily admired the flowers in the garden, the Emperor was secretly sulking nearby. At this moment, the Emperor just thought, why does Lady Steen always come looking for Lillian? It was so annoying. She was always interrupting his alone time with Lillian. And Lillian seemed so happy, completely unaware of his very bad mood. At that moment, Steen walked over to bow and greet the Emperor. The Emperor wondered how she had discovered him when he had been hiding so very well. But the Emperor forgot that he is the ruler of a nation. Wherever he goes, he is the center of attention. Steen did not beat around the bush and decided to speak to him very frankly. "I do not want to lose my life because of your Majesty's intense jealousy." The Emperor also spoke bluntly. "Your life is in my hands. As long as you don't see Lillian again, you'll be unharmed." But faced with such unreasonable demands, Steen found it difficult. "Lillian is my benefactor, teacher, and good friend. How can I cut ties?" Hearing this, the Emperor flew into a rage, angrily asking, "Don't tell me you are in love with the Queen." Steen admitted, "The Queen is so innocent and kind. Of course I would not dislike a person like her." No matter what, could the Emperor, ruler of a nation, possibly lose to her in this situation? So he made a bet with Steen. "The ball's soon. Let's bet on who Lillian will choose for the first dance." The Emperor wanted to prove to himself whether Lillian's heart truly belonged to him. Steen agreed readily, because she knew Lillian's personal preferences like the back of her own hand. But how could someone as proud as the Emperor ever show any kind of weakness? Back at the palace, the Emperor changed into over a dozen outfits. But to Lillian, they all looked the same. At this moment, Steen met with the Emperor again. When it comes to dressing up, women truly have an advantage. After getting ready, Steen made Lillian's eyes light up. "You look absolutely stunning," Lillian said. From Lillian's expression, it seemed as if Steen had already won the bet between them. But there was no rush. The ball had not started yet. Usually the best moves are saved for last. This is the first time we have seen an emperor try to win favor. He loves her so much, so why can't he think of what she likes? Only 3 days remained until the ball. Watching Steen give clothes and swords as gifts, he saw she understood Lillian. He thought of his countless collected swords. But if he also gave a sword to Lillian, would that not be copying Steen? He had always felt he loves Lillian deeply, yet could not think of any of her preferences. Why could he not think of one? The Emperor suddenly remembered that Lillian seems to like very handsome-looking men. He remembered the romance novel that Lillian had given to him. Yes, she likes these kinds of things. He then called the head maid, ordering her to follow Lillian in order to discover her preferences. Meanwhile, this was Lillian's first time sparring with the soldiers since she had become the queen. For the soldiers, this was truly nerve-wracking. They were terrified that swords might not have eyes and could harm her. Lillian only hoped the soldiers would not see her as the queen and would just give it their all. And it was only by defeating the queen that they would be able to get off work early. The soldiers advanced one by one, using their best skills, but they still could not overcome the odds. One by one, they were all defeated by the queen. A complete military defeat. The head maid reported the results to the emperor. There was nothing particularly special. This troubled the emperor greatly, so he asked the maid for her opinion. How do you view preferences? The observer sees clearly while the person involved is confused. The head maid said, people are fickle. For example, I like eating a certain fish, but if you wanted to win my favor and made me eat it 3 times a day, I would definitely get sick of it. I would avoid it even if I just smelled it, because I would be completely fed up. This hit the nail on the head. The emperor suddenly understood everything. He also somewhat regretted why he had impulsively made such a foolish bet with Steen. Even if he knew Lillian's preferences, they could change. Even if they did not change, it doesn't mean he could win her heart. Only the emperor's private life gets turned upside down. If he tries to please Lillian based on gossip, he will not win her favor. When truly loving someone, people often forget simple truths. Jealousy had completely blinded the emperor. For the first time in his life, the emperor considered admitting defeat and abandoning the bet. He found Lillian. I have something to tell you, the emperor stammered, saying, I'm sorry. For the first time in his life, Lillian was completely confused by his words. What has happened? She asked him. The childish emperor made a bet using his beloved and lost, feeling too ashamed to face her and punishing himself. The emperor confessed his mistake to Lillian, saying pitifully, I made a bet that was using you. I was so foolishly confident that I would be the one to win. But looking back, I just dug my own grave. Lillian listened in complete confusion. What bet? What were the terms of this bet? It was a bet about who you'd choose for the first dance. I want to dance with you. I want you to like me. Looking at the emperor acting so childishly, was this still him? He felt too ashamed to face Lillian now. He was too embarrassed to ask for his goodnight kisses, so he wanted to punish himself with solitary reflection. She's not a toy, so using her in a bet is infuriating, but if he doesn't sleep, he'll be in a bad mood. If he gets labeled a tyrant, it would only benefit Prince Charlene, making the emperor's life difficult. This could not happen. Seeing the emperor was about to leave, Lillian stepped forward to take his hand, admitting she was indeed fickle. But as the queen, her daily responsibility to help the emperor sleep would never, ever change. Besides, the emperor's willingness to admit his mistakes and accept defeat was the most admirable thing. Having such a competitive spirit, yet choosing to give up, watching his daily changes made Lillian like him more. The next day, the emperor asked Prince Charlene, Your birthday is coming. What gift would you like? Actually, Prince Charlene has always harbored resentment toward the emperor. The emperor was born with everything, while he struggles. He wants to take everything from the emperor. What makes him happier is that the emperor is not wary of him. Seeing the doll on the emperor's desk, Prince Charlene thought the emperor had become unrecognizable because of Lillian. Now he saw Lillian's true value. He no longer wanted to eliminate her, but instead wanted to win her over. Gold, silver, and jewels would not work on Lillian, so he sought out a hermit to help him find her weaknesses. This person was the spy Prince Charlene had planted beside Lillian's own brother, Basti. Things progressed very smoothly, and before too long, the spy Baldwin had gathered much intelligence. Prince Charlene secretly met with him, asking what important intelligence he had managed to gather. The Emperor and Steen were going to great lengths for the ball, but Lillian would ultimately choose Prince Charlene. The spy that Prince Charlene had sent out brought back a large load of information for him. However, none of it was actually useful to him. He ordered the spy to continue to infiltrate. Within the imperial city, Prince Charlene's birthday party finally and officially began. Though he sat in the place of honor as the host, he was still one rank below the Emperor. He completely dismissed everyone's blessings and all of the gifts they had brought for him, because today, his main goal was to figure out Lillian, wanting to see how capable she really was. But everyone else had already arrived. Why was only the Queen herself still missing from the party? The Emperor said she would arrive later. We were supposed to come together, but I am still seeking her forgiveness. Hearing this, Prince Charlene was certain of Lillian's charm. Even the mighty Emperor had to seek her forgiveness. The announcement, "Her Majesty the Queen arrives," rang out, and Lillian appeared in a beautiful blue dress. She was so incredibly beautiful that the Emperor could not look away from her. Lillian gave Prince Charlene the key of Erin, a gift which he liked very much. At this moment, Steen also came to Lillian's side, hoping to invite her for the first dance. Seeing this happen, the Emperor hurried to Lillian's side, and the two of them began competing. The Emperor gave up the bet, but never said he would not dance. Lillian had not forgiven them. So how could Lillian choose? Though she was no longer pursuing the matter, she had not let it go. In this standoff, Prince Charlene walked over. "May I have the honor of inviting you for the first dance?" At this moment, Lillian and Prince Charlene became the focus of the banquet, becoming everyone's topic of conversation. Lillian faced Prince Charlene's invitation. Refusing would have serious consequences, so she could only agree. Prince Charlene took the opportunity to ask Lillian, "Do you think you are worthy of him? Why change him?" Hearing this, Lillian already understood his purpose, but no one had ever asked the Emperor to change. Perhaps she was just a catalyst. Those who love flowers will naturally stop to admire or pick them, while those who are indifferent simply walk away. Only oneself can change, and the Emperor changed on his own. The ball went so smoothly only because Lillian told Hannah before she left, "If anyone makes suspicious moves, arrest them." From beginning to end, Lillian has had only one simple goal: to survive. This Emperor never trusts anyone. Yet he had no suspicion toward this girl, showering her with boundless love and his complete devotion. After a busy day at the ball, Lillian was tired and wanted to rest when she saw the Emperor approaching. The Emperor had already noticed Lillian's clear nervousness during the ball earlier that evening. He gently comforted Lillian, telling her not to worry. He explained that he had arranged for many soldiers. They were all dressed in plain clothes, with the single mission to prevent any problems from occurring. Of course, Lillian knew about these soldiers, because in the original story, Prince Charlene frames the heroine. Therefore, Lillian did not trust the soldiers. She was still very much afraid of what could happen. She asked the Emperor, "What if I am framed, and all of the evidence points directly to me? And even if you think it's me, what would you do in that situation?" The Emperor looked at this innocent girl before him. "I believe you would not lie to me. You are an honest person. I believe that even if you committed a crime, you would not deny it. No matter what, I will always believe in you." Lillian never imagined the Emperor would trust her so completely. At this moment, the Emperor made Lillian feel his incredible and comforting warmth. Right now, she did not want to think about anything else, only wanting to treasure every moment with him. This was the first time Lillian did not turn and leave, but instead chose to join hands with the Emperor. The next day, Basti found Lillian. "Have you finished the book? I can help you find some more." He dismissed the maids and then told Lillian that he had discovered a spy planted right beside him. This person had gathered much information about Lillian, and he warned her to be careful of those around her. Meanwhile, the temple sent word that the Red Witch had taken God's flute and had to be stopped. The Red Witch lives in the pagan forest, a place where many magical beasts are known to dwell. People disappear there every year. The Emperor's own insomnia was also the result of her curse. Lillian's abilities with a sword were such that even the royal soldiers were no match for her. But the Emperor could not bear to let her go. Though powerful, she was still no match for Basti. Seeing how much Lillian trusted Basti, the Emperor asked her, "Is it only because of his superior martial arts?" That seemed to be only one aspect of it. More importantly, it was because they were family. The Emperor loves asking fatal questions. What if I went instead? Seeing Lillian's expression, he knew the answer. The Emperor's face showed dissatisfaction, like an unhappy child. Shouldn't I be the most capable one in your heart? Looking at the Emperor turning away, Lillian knew this way. She could not help him sleep tonight. That would not do. The Emperor did not want to miss any of Lillian's goodnight kisses. Soon, Basti was completely ready and prepared to set off for the depths of the pagan forest. The Emperor, cursed by the witch with insomnia, now bears a scar that will never truly fade. To retrieve God's flute for the temple, Basti fought alone, venturing solo into the terrifying forest. On his first night in the forest, he heard wolves howling, but for Basti, it was just adding game to his meal. On the second day, starving magical beasts charged at Basti. Seeing how formidable he was, the witch prepared her curses. However, it must be admitted that Basti's great might would lead to their ultimate defeat. On the third day, Basti's reputation had spread through the forest. Everyone thought he was insane because most magical beasts had died. By only the fourth day, the witch had already fallen before the might of Basti. Seeing that she was about to lose her life, the witch obediently handed over the flute to him. Basti completed his mission and obtained the flute, keeping his promise to spare her life, saying, "Pleasure doing business." Meanwhile, the temple people, following Prince Charlene's instructions, successfully framed Basti and celebrated, thinking he would not survive. Then, with a very loud crash, as everyone feared and worried, the door was suddenly smashed open. Basti had returned completely unharmed, with all his limbs intact and holding the flute in his hand. Only then did the temple people realize they had foolishly trusted Prince Charlene and had ended up offending Basti. Basti came to Lillian and began telling her all about his heroic deeds in the pagan forest. The Emperor walked in with red wine. With Basti's victorious return, the Emperor naturally came to celebrate. After a few drinks, Basti poured out his grievances. They all hoped I would die in the forest. Lillian helped by telling the Emperor the forest was very dangerous, and obtaining the flute had not been easy. Whether it was because Basti had too much to drink, he did not read the Emperor's expression and said directly, "Your Majesty, you absolutely should not go. The witch and beasts are child's play. Even Lillian could handle them. As long as you're not useless, you can return unharmed." Basti's words enraged the Emperor, because that is where he received his curse. Was Basti mocking him as useless? Seeing that Basti had too much to drink, Lillian quickly helped him withdraw from the room. Before leaving, he added, "Being capable is the true way of kings. It's 10,000 times better than being handsome." Afterward, the Emperor asked Lillian, "Do you really like capable people that much?" Lillian answered without hesitation, "Yes." He asked if weak people were annoying, and she agreed. But for the Emperor, being cursed with insomnia by the witch was an indelible scar in his heart. The Emperor undressed in front of the woman, revealing his straight posture and very muscular body. But she showed no reaction. Lillian's family was renowned for swordsmanship, and the men were brave warriors. Lillian admitted she likes capable, unstoppable people. Thinking of this, the Emperor looked at his own delicate and pale hands and felt completely disgusted. Was it because Lillian thought he was not manly enough that she only signed a 1-year contract with him? Reflecting on everything before, he knew Lillian diligently helped him to sleep every single day. Even when he undressed in front of her, showing his beautifully muscled arms, Lillian did not even look. Every day, it was the same sentence. "Are you ready to sleep? Let me help you." Her face showed no expression. There was no tension between husband and wife. Had Lillian never seen him as a man? He just wanted to hear, "I love you." As the moon sets and the sun rises, a new day begins. Today, Lillian told the Emperor she needed to leave. The Emperor held back his tears and asked her, "Are you planning on leaving the imperial city?" "Your Majesty, you're too suspicious. She's just going to Basti's succession ceremony." Who knew the Emperor had become not only jealous but also a clingy follower? What if an even more manly man appears at the ceremony and wins Lillian's heart? So the Emperor had to follow. Basti looked devastatingly handsome today. He was tall, mighty, and distinguished, the dream of countless young women. Seeing the Emperor follow Lillian here, Basti quickly stepped forward to pay his proper respects. The ceremony began with a simple process. The declaration stated Basti, head of the Macquarie family, vowed to prosper the family. The ceremony proceeded very smoothly. Basti officially became the Macquarie family head, and he cried tears of joy. Lillian congratulated Basti, but he could not bear for her to leave so soon, saying, "Why not look a few more times?" Lillian understood the Emperor's thoughts too well, and could only say he has state affairs tomorrow, and must return early. Seeing this scene, Basti and Raylan thought about how Lillian was watched like a prisoner, and they shed tears of sympathy. Seeing the situation, what could the Emperor say? He could only respond, "It is nothing. State affairs can be postponed." As soon as he finished speaking, he was seated at the dining table as steaks and desserts were brought out. Lillian said to him softly, "Since we are staying, let's have some fun and relax." The Emperor also tightly held Lillian's hand. You could tell that as long as Lillian was happy, nothing else mattered. How could this atmosphere be missing anything? Raylan brought out wine she treasured. Conversation then became uncontrollable. The Emperor, not seen as manly in his beloved's eyes, sought solutions, approaching a muscular man to ask about muscle building. The Emperor and Lillian were asked to stay for dinner and to play a bit more before returning. Though Basti was brave in battle, his alcohol tolerance was not great. After a few drinks, he was lost. Gathering together like this reminded Lillian of their childhood. They often played hide-and-seek, though their father frequently scolded them. She remembered once during hide-and-seek, they hid in the stable, got covered in manure, and were all thrown into a bathtub. The Emperor's jealousy acted up again. "Bathtub? Don't tell me the three of you bathed together. You're different genders." The Emperor's jurisdiction was way too broad. That was when they were children. Basti, emboldened by alcohol, said, "Should we play happily?" Lillian had no objections, wanting to return to childhood during this rare atmosphere. But the Emperor said no. Basti thought the Emperor disagreed because he wasn't included. "Then let's all play the game together." The Emperor hesitated for a long time, but faced with Steen's invitation and Lillian's persuasion, he could not refuse. As night fell, back in the room, Lillian teased him. "So you didn't want to join because you thought we'd all bathe together?" The Emperor looked aggrieved. "Wasn't it? Because you said that you all bathed together after you played games?" Besides, the Emperor was born into royalty with very strict requirements. He had never played games like hide-and-seek. Just as they were about to rest, Lillian heard a commotion outside and made an excuse to check on it. Though he said he was from the Mercury Knights and named Bat, Lillian recognized him as Prince Charlene's follower. She wondered if Basti knew. Before Lillian could ask more questions, the Emperor also arrived. He was curious what business Lillian had talking to him at night. Lillian said he was a new soldier that Basti had recruited. The Emperor was still jealous and asked Lillian a question. "You said that you like capable men. Is it this type of muscular guy that you like?" Naively, Lillian casually replied, "Yes. Who would not like that kind of man?" The Emperor suppressed his anger. "It is very late. We should go back." Lillian realized she said the wrong thing. The soldier, coming to his senses, thought to himself, "Did I just manage to save my own life?" But then, the Emperor actually turned back around. "It's over," the soldier thought. "He's really going to die." Unexpectedly, the Emperor just asked him, "How did you manage to build those muscles? Write down everything you know and give it to me tomorrow." The soldier looked completely bewildered by the request. But the Emperor added, "This is an imperial decree." Then he turned and went back to his own room. Lillian asked the Emperor why he took so long. The Emperor would not say what he had actually gone to do. He just laid down on the bed, thinking it was all because she was far too beautiful. With a knock at the door, Basti and Raylan came to deliver something. Raylan handed Lillian an embroidered handkerchief. Seeing it, Lillian immediately knew who it was from. The Emperor saw how happy she was. "Is it from a man?" Of course. One muscular man was not enough. Now there was an embroidery man to worry about too. This king's troubles weren't state affairs or palace beauties. But why did the Duke's mansion have so many men? The Emperor could no longer suppress his emotions and shouted at Lillian, "I am so afraid in my heart of losing you. I am more afraid you'll like other men. Afraid you will run away, leave me, and distance yourself from me." The Emperor had never been so anxious and helpless. You can imagine just how deeply he truly loves Lillian. But Lillian was so strong and very brave, never needing the Emperor's own protection or his care. The emperor just wants to win Lillian's heart, and wants Lillian to need him. But when will she understand? After returning to the palace, the emperor acted strangely. The maids did not know why, but even Lillian didn't know. Lillian secretly went to check on the emperor and discovered him working out. But she could not ask, so she returned. The next day, when Lillian came to find the emperor, she discovered that he was in a rage. The reason was simply that the person he had sent to find embroidery was taking too long. Lillian walked into the hall, confused, asking the emperor if he had any troubles on his mind lately. The emperor would not admit to it. But was it not obvious enough without him saying anything? She remembered yesterday when she had to reply to all of the letters for the upcoming tea party. The emperor felt that as the queen, she did not need to reply to everyone there individually. But Lillian felt that after the contract ends, she'll be an ordinary noble, so she did not want to offend them. Daisy speculated to her. Could the emperor be angry about this? Or perhaps he is feeling hurt. Lillian reflected on her behavior. She and the emperor were husband and wife. Had she kept too much distance from him? Daisy explained that perhaps if Lillian became more delicate and dependent, the emperor would be much happier. Thinking of this, Lillian went to find the emperor. In a few days, there will be a tea party at the palace. Could you accompany me? If your state affairs are busy, then you can just, never mind. The emperor quickly stood up. Even though documents were piled up like mountains, he repeatedly said, "Not busy, not busy." Seeing the emperor was so happy about her request, she thought that Daisy was indeed right. In such a good mood, Lillian became more enlightened. He wanted to ask for alone time, but his words came out as an invitation for tea. It was a coincidence the maid had just brought tea. Seeing the situation, she did not want to be a third wheel and withdrew. Lillian saw her favorite cookies and absolutely loved them. But she knew she should not ignore the emperor beside her. This king handles state affairs meticulously, but his beloved's heart has long since eluded him completely. The day of the tea party drew closer and closer, and more letters began to arrive. Lillian felt overwhelmed by all of them, and called for Daisy to help her sort through them. She remembered in the original story, Prince Charlene used people to spread false rumors at the tea party to isolate Sarah. So Lillian decided to use her unique identity as a transmigrator to devise a completely foolproof plan. Lillian wanted to seat all of the suspects at one single table. Keeping them close would make it easier. A few days later, the tea party finally arrived. Because the weather was hot, the maid helped tie up Lillian's hair. Getting up early and dressing carefully, the emperor came to pick up Lillian and asked how his outfit looked. After receiving her approval, he showed a satisfied smile. As long as Lillian liked it, his efforts were not wasted. Then Lillian reached out to take the emperor's hand as they walked to the tea party. This left his heart unable to calm down. The emperor hoped Lillian would often take the initiative to hold his hand in the future, having more intimate contact. At this moment, Lillian was the emperor's greatest challenge. Loving, but not being loved in return. He believed sincerity conquers all. Everyone was gossiping, thinking that Lillian and the emperor's display of affection was just an act. Hearing this, Steen burst out laughing, thinking that these people who understood nothing dared to say anything. The protagonists had arrived. Faced with these gossiping busybodies, the emperor wanted to teach them a lesson about royal dignity. As expected, he was stopped by the kind-hearted queen. This is the queen in his eyes. Kind and magnanimous. The emperor deliberately kissed the queen's hand in front of everyone to establish her authority. They agreed to meet tonight. After witnessing this shocking scene, everyone instantly fell completely silent, not daring to say another word. The tea party officially began, with Lillian having prepared abundant and delicious sweets for everyone to enjoy. Everyone apologized to the queen for all of their earlier and very foolish comments. Lillian may be easy to bully, but Steen is not someone to mess with. When you've caused harm, can sorry fix it? Lillian had wanted to help Steen deal with these suspects, but unexpectedly, Steen handled them all by herself. At a garden tea party, Empress Lillian observes that Lady Arisa seems to be rather critical of the emperor. Lillian is visibly shocked by the blunt and treasonous statement. A hand grips her shoulder as the narrative explains there are two types of people who become henchmen for the rebellious Prince Chiron. The first type includes those who were bribed and used by him, shown as a man kneeling in submission. The second type were those who sought revenge against the emperor for past wrongs. Lillian recalls the image of the emperor as a blood-soaked tyrant with glowing red eyes. She understands now that Lady Arisa is the second type, as a flashback shows Arisa weeping over the body of someone precious she lost because of the emperor. Back in the present, another noble lady slams her hand on the table, furiously demanding if Lady Arisa realizes who she is speaking to. The lady continues to shout, warning Arisa that speaking ill of the emperor is treason and will be punished. Lady Arisa simply turns her back and offers a terse apology before walking away. The angry lady insists that Lillian must punish her to uphold the dignity of the imperial family. Lillian calmly diffuses the tension, saying they shouldn't ruin the day with violence after everyone worked so hard. She invites the ladies to finish their tea, effectively ending the confrontation. Later that evening, Lillian gazes out her window at the full moon, pondering the day's events. She vividly remembers Lady Arisa's cutting remark about the blood the emperor has spilled. With a worried expression, Lillian admits to herself that she had forgotten just how many people held a deep resentment for Kale. Her personal maid, Daisy, enters the room, noting that the night air is cold, and presents a warm blanket she brought for the Empress. As Daisy brushes her long hair, Lillian quietly asks her who it was that Lady Arisa had lost. Daisy explains that Lady Arisa had an older brother. She reflects internally that Lord Cullen's crime was no worse than that of Marquess Elan, who had been spared. Daisy notes that while the Marquess was lucky, the Emperor was simply following his own strict rules in Lord Cullen's case. The maid pauses her brushing, rhetorically asking if Lady Arisa would see it that way. She finishes her duties and walks away quietly, leaving Lillian alone with her heavy thoughts. Lying awake in bed, Lillian realizes she had always considered the Emperor's tyranny a mere plot point from the novel. She now understands that for those who knew him in the past, the fear of him is very real. Lillian decides she wants to change this situation and wonders how to begin. Just then, her bedroom door creaks open and Kale's head appears as he softly calls her name. He asks if he woke her, but Lillian, already sitting up, informs him that she has been awake the whole time. Kale approaches her bed, telling her he has something important to say. Lillian asks what it is, bracing herself for something that might be meaningless to her larger goal. Lillian admits she isn't sure her words can change the novel's established events, but she has to try. Kale grips the bedsheets tightly and asks if she is afraid he will kill the women from the party. Lillian replies softly that everyone is afraid of death. Remembering her own demise in her past life, she confesses that her primary motivation for coming to the palace was to avoid dying. Kale promises her that he would never raise his sword against her, and when she questions him, he reaffirms never. Lillian feels a sense of relief, knowing she has at least secured her own safety from a fatal end. However, she places her hand over his and clarifies that her concern is for the lives of other people. Lillian explains that she isn't asking him to stop killing entirely, but to minimize the lethal action he takes. Looking at him with earnest hope, she says she no longer wants him to be known as a brutal tyrant, but as a true emperor. Kale gazes back at her, his expression softening as he listens to her heartfelt plea. He takes her hand in his and makes a solemn vow to try and restrain himself with all his heart. Lillian's heart pounds in her chest as she blushes, stunned by the sincerity of his promise. Kale squeezes her hand gently, adding that whenever he thinks lightly of a life, he will remember her, and this very moment. A warm, blushing smile spreads across Lillian's face as she agrees and thanks him. Later, as they lie in bed, Kale tells her she is a very strange person. As Lillian drifts off to sleep, he muses that he seems to have become even stranger than she is. He watches her sleep peacefully for a moment. Kale quietly admits to himself that he doesn't mind the change at all. The next morning, a maid kneels before the Emperor, apologizing and asking what she should do since the Empress fell asleep without putting him to sleep first. Kale, sitting on the edge of the bed, calmly tells the maid that it is all right and he can manage for a day. He tells her to call for him if he needs a nap later and reassures her not to worry. When she finally wakes up and realizes she forgot her duty, she recalls the tender moment from the night before when Kale held her as she slept. Lillian covers her bright red face with her hands, thinking to herself that this budding feeling is getting dangerous. Lillian recalls the moment she confidently proposed a 1-year contract to the Emperor. She reflects that before being summoned into the novel, Kale was nothing more than a fictional character to her. In that story, he was simply the male lead destined to love Sela, but now he is a real human, with a warm body and a beating heart. Gazing at his back, she questions how she can remain indifferent to a man who is her absolute ideal type, and wonders if she can truly keep herself from falling in love with him. In the present, Lillian sits across from Kale and states that she believes they should sleep in separate rooms. Internally, she resolves that it would be best for them to maintain their distance from this point forward. Worried, Kale asks if he has done something wrong, but she quickly assures him that he has not. He presses further, asking if her sudden decision is because of their tender moment the previous night, and she confirms that it is. Lillian waves her hands dismissively, hastily explaining that it's not hate, but rather a feeling that they are becoming too close. Kale's expression darkens as he tells her their ending doesn't have to be that clean. She's taken aback by his response, wondering if he wants her to cling to him even after he inevitably falls for Sayla. He firmly denies her request for separate rooms, leaving Lillian to ask why he would refuse. Conceding his point, Lillian admits she was being thoughtless and agrees it is better for the public to believe they are on good terms, promising not to mention separate rooms again. Kale thanks her for her understanding. With a look of grim, Lillian tells herself that since the story's ending is fixed, she must simply control her own developing feelings. Her internal doubt rises, as she admits she is not sure she can actually manage that. Kale smoothly changes the subject. He informs Lillian that he recently came across someone he felt a strong urge to kill. He explains that an aristocrat was caught smuggling the Empire's precious magic stones to a foreign nation's prince. A brief explanation shows that magic stones, which store magical power, are a rare resource exclusive to the mines of the Kaldorf Empire. Because of their rarity and power, the sale and purchase of these stones are strictly controlled by imperial order. Tapping the table, Kale notes that under imperial law, the man's crime was punishable by death. However, he reveals that he chose not to kill him, instead sentencing him to lifelong imprisonment as a sign of mercy. Lillian praises him for his good judgment, prompting Kale to lean forward and ask her to check if his heart is beating properly as her reward. Flustered, she offers to call a doctor for him, but he gently insists that she is the one who should do it. Before she can react, he swiftly pulls her out of her chair and into his arms. Lillian is enveloped in a warm hug, her heart beginning to pound as she's surrounded by an illusion of white roses. She blushes furiously, her face pressed against his chest as her heart thumps wildly. She pushes his face away, confirming that his heart is beating normally, to which he replies with a relieved smile. With his hand over his heart, Kale asks if she will check his heartbeat for him every time he keeps a promise he has made to her. After a moment of surprise, Lillian bursts into a bright laugh and happily agrees that she will. Later, Kale internally reflects that the amount of smuggled stones was small, which made his decision easier. He recalls the reasonable excuse he gave Lillian for needing to maintain their close relationship. He also privately acknowledges that it served as a perfect excuse to finally hug her. Later, in the throne room, an aide reports that Viscount Roldan's fortune has been seized and asks what should be done with his family. The Emperor declares that the Viscount will live as a commoner, and that he will pay no more attention to the matter. Kale thinks to himself that his subjects are starting to say useless things again. His thoughts drift back to Lillian, and her clear desire to keep a distance between them to ensure a clean break. He pictures her walking away from him into a field of flowers, a vision of her eventual departure. Sitting on his throne, Kale concludes that his efforts to win her over have not been useless, and now wonders what he must do to close the emotional distance between them. He distractedly asks an aide about the contents of a letter to be sent to Apaluka. The guy is comically baffled by the Emperor's seemingly random question about closing the distance. An old, fiery general misinterprets his words as a plan for war, and leaps up, shouting his enthusiastic support for conquering Apaluka. Kale muses aloud, asking if one doesn't need to close the distance in order to achieve conquest. The general, now surrounded by a fiery aura, advises that to close the distance, they must first cut off all of the enemy's withdrawal routes. Kale thoughtfully considers the military strategy, agreeing that blocking a path of retreat would make it impossible for the target to run away. An aura of immense pressure fills the room as the Emperor, now holding a rifle, menacingly asks whose head, exactly, the general plans to lop off. The general gasps in terror, stammering that it is only natural to behead one's enemies. With his eyes glowing a dangerous red, Kale glares and asks if the general is calling the Empress an enemy. The general screams in panic, hastily clarifying that he was under the impression they were discussing the military siege of Apaluka. Kale is jolted out of his menacing state, suddenly remembering the official state matter they were supposed to be discussing. The Emperor calmly agrees with the command. He presses his gloved fingers to his temple, reminding himself to come to his senses and act like an emperor. Elsewhere, Lillian rests her chin on her hand with a sigh, anxiously wondering if she will truly be okay as her feelings for Kale continue to grow. Thinking that both husband and wife were thinking the very same thing. Later, a mysterious figure in a dark hooded cloak approaches a door. A man's voice from within invites the lady to enter, and she peeks inside, her striking eyes visible in the sliver of light. Inside, the long-haired Prince Sharon is sitting comfortably and asks his guest why she suddenly requested to see him. The hooded woman, Lady Arisa, sits opposite him and states that there is something she is curious about. She asks Sharon why that woman is taking the side of the Empress, to which he inquires who she means. Lady Arisa specifies she is talking about Marchioness Elan, noting that Stian has been absent from society since her marriage, but has now suddenly re-emerged as the Empress's ally. She angrily recalls Stian dismissing gossipers as clueless and demands to know why the Marchioness would align herself with Empress Lillian. Sharon smiles and casually suggests it is probably because they have a close personal relationship. Lady Arisa becomes enraged at the suggestion, shouting that when Stian was prominent, she had immense support but was notoriously selfish. She grips her cloak and trembles with fury, declaring that Stian never once used her influence to help anyone. Sharon calmly acknowledges that it is true. Lady Elan has never minded her language. He then looks at her pointedly and asks if she is going to give up on her plans, simply because she is scared of the Marchioness. Lady Arisa lets out a derisive laugh at the very idea of giving up. She sits up straight and declares that she will never stop her efforts. Lady Arisa then tells him there is just one thing she needs his help with. She asks him to help her get rid of Marchioness Elan, the request punctuated by a symbolic image of Stian, surrounded by red roses and crossed swords. Sharon contemplates her request, acknowledging that leaving a powerful woman like the Marchioness by the Empress's side could indeed be a problem. He agrees to her plan very well. A sinister shadow falls across Sharon's face as he adds that the Marchioness is not all that beneficial to him either. The scene shifts to a peaceful forest, where Stian is leaning against a tree, reading a letter. The letter reports that Empress Lillian has successfully persuaded the Emperor to not spill any more blood. Stian reflects on the recent tea party where Lady Arisa insulted Lillian, noting how surprising it was that the Emperor did not draw his sword in anger. Lillian appears behind her and asks if she is reading the letter again, to which Stian replies that she was just curious. With a slightly strained smile, Lillian humbly states that her accomplishment was nothing impressive, and that she merely asked His Majesty to stop killing so many people. Lillian notices her friend has not touched the cookies, and asks if they are not to her taste. Stian bluntly replies that they are not the worst thing she has ever eaten. She immediately winces, internally cursing her inability to keep her sharp tongue in check. Unfazed by the comment, Lillian smiles and pushes the plate of cookies closer, encouraging her to have some more. The narration reveals that Stian, whose birth name is Celestian, was actually boiling with rage, not at Lillian, but at the cruel gossipers who claimed the Emperor's love was a lie. She remembers how high society had once labeled her a villainess, and now sees them targeting the kind-hearted Lillian in the same manner. Lillian notices her friend looks unwell and asks if she is ill, but Stian blames her pallor on the bright sun. Lillian immediately apologizes, feeling she should have been more attentive, but Stian assures her there is no need to worry, as she was the one who suggested an outdoor tea time. Stian then stands up, stating that she wanted to get in some sword practice anyway. She grips her sword hilt tightly, thinking that while she does not care about the snide remarks aimed at her, she cannot allow Lillian to be hurt by them. She resolves to protect Lillian's lovely expression and praiseworthy personality. Looking determined, Stian decides she must protect the Empress. She vows to do so, in the same way that Lillian once protected her with a sword. Lillian observes that Stian seems to have a lot on her mind. Stian deflects by claiming she was just remembering something she needed to do at home. Soon, the two women begin their sword training, with Lillian advising that one should never let go of their sword. As Stian takes a firm step, Lillian explains that an enemy's greatest wish is to find their opponent defenseless. Lillian parries one of Stian's attacks and tells her there is no shame in being a beginner, complimenting her on being a quick learner. Lillian executes a swooping attack to demonstrate her point, advising that, against a stronger foe, one must either run away or attempt a surprise attack. Stian watches her friend's vigorous movements, impressed that Lillian's skills seem to improve every time she sees her. Their two practice swords clash together with a sharp clang. After an intense session, an exhausted Stian flops down against a tree and drops her sword, suggesting they take a break. Lillian approaches her friend, who expresses disbelief that she managed to swing her sword for a whole hour. A man's fine shoe steps into the frame as a voice asks if they are resting. It is Emperor Kale, who has come to join them, asking why else he would be there. He sits down with them under the tree, observing that he saw them practicing, and Stian agrees it is good exercise. Lillian smiles and offers the Emperor a drink of water from her personal bottle. Kale takes the bottle and asks with a playful smile if it is hers. Stian glares daggers at the Emperor, as Lillian confirms that she has been drinking from it. With a triumphant grin aimed at Stian, Kale proceeds to drink from the bottle. Stian exclaims in mock horror that it looks like he has finished the entire bottle, and that Her Majesty needs something to drink too. Kale looks startled, realizing he has lapped it all up without leaving a single drop. The ornate water bottle Lillian had offered now lay empty on the forest floor. Emperor Kale begins to sweat, realizing his blunder in a moment of petty jealousy. Stian calmly tells Lillian not to worry, as she still has plenty of water left in her own bottle. With a bright smile, she offers her bottle to the Emperor. Kale snatches the bottle and gulps down the water, admitting with relief that he was still thirsty, much to Stian's silent fury. He then casually tosses Stian's now empty bottle to the ground, beside Lillian's, and thanks her with a dismissive air. With Kale looking on in disbelief, Lillian smiles brightly and confirms that yes, she does dislike violence. Kale looks visibly ticked off as Lillian quickly reassures Stian that, of course, she doesn't hate her, and, in fact, really likes her. Lillian leans against her friend, agreeing that Stian is as meek as a lamb and not violent at all. Kale clears his throat and awkwardly admits that he, too, is not actually all that skilled with a sword. Lillian asks if violence and poor sword skills are related, but Stian explains that using force and having power are actually quite different things. This makes Lillian wonder if she likes people who are clumsy with swords. But she concludes that if one must wield a sword, it is better to be skilled. The Emperor erupts in a fit of embarrassed rage, as Stian bursts into loud, unrestrained laughter. Back in his study, Prince Sharon looks down at a portrait of Stian and gives the order to get rid of this woman. A masked spy clarifies that he doesn't have to kill her, and Sharon confirms that, for now, she just needs to be removed from the social sphere. The spy notes that Marchioness Elan is an easy target to watch, as she spends most of her time at home. One day, a young noble lady with pink hair arrives at Stian's home, proudly presenting a picnic basket she made herself. Stian looks at her visitor with a cold expression before grabbing the offered basket. Inside is a dazzling and adorable pudding dessert, shaped like a bear and surrounded by fruit. The young lady flinches under Stian's intense stare as she stammers that she thought the dessert would be to her liking. The spy snaps a twig in frustration, thinking that Stian is just as cruel as the rumors say for reacting so coldly to something so cute. Stian summons her butler, and the young lady asks him to bring a magic stone with the ability to freeze. With a charming wink, Stian explains that they wouldn't want the pudding to go bad. The spy's heart pounds once more, stunned by this unexpected act of consideration from the supposedly cold-hearted Marchioness. Later, the spy asks the young lady if she thinks he will be able to meet the Empress, and she assures him that she is fully capable of making that happen. The lady then loses her confidence, sighing that Her Majesty is so impressive and would never want to meet someone like her. She worries that she starts stuttering, gets embarrassed easily, and will just be humiliated. The young lady is shocked that Stian knows how to use a sword, asking if it isn't very ladylike. Stian explains that Her Majesty has wielded a sword since she was young, and is now teaching her, which was a long-held wish of hers. As she practices her swings, she reflects that whenever she sees the Empress, she is reminded that anyone can change in the way they want. The spy, still watching from his hiding spot, realizes that he himself is also in the process of changing. He is suddenly shocked, wondering how she could possibly know he was there. Stian's sword slashes through the air, forcing the spy to duck and stumble back in surprise. He falls to the ground with a thud, and a moment later, the sharp point of Stian's blade is at his throat. C states that she has changed enough to not even be scared of a little thing like this. A bald man with a mustache, Sir Wilton, steps forward as Stian addresses him by name. The spy, now revealed to be in her employ, reports that he has just caught the man who has been tailing her, and Sir Wilton compliments his act of bravery. She then turns to the young pink-haired lady and asks for her opinion, who can only stammer that Stian is amazing and simply the best. As Stian finishes recounting what happened, Lillian arrives, clearing her throat to announce her presence. Lillian looks on in shock, realizing this is the reason why so many noble ladies have gathered at the estate to learn swordsmanship. Stian laughs heartily, reminding Lillian that she was the one who said she could bring a few people. Lillian asks if all of them truly wish to learn the sword, to which Stian cryptically replies that she brought them there in a legitimate way. The young, pink-haired lady approaches Lillian with a question, confirming Lillian's suspicion that Stian did something to convince them all to come. The lady asks with wide-eyed curiosity if it is true that Her Majesty was the one who taught Lady Elin how to use a sword. When Lillian confirms this, the young lady's face lights up with a radiant smile. She then eagerly asks if this means she, too, will be able to knock out suspicious men, leaving Lillian utterly speechless. While Stian tries to hide a shy smile, the other ladies excitedly confirm that something amazing did happen. One of the ladies enthusiastically recounts the tale of how Lady Elin fearlessly stuck her sword into a bush, and a man magically popped out. She turns to Stian and asks if she wasn't afraid during the confrontation. Stian explains with a confident smirk that having power gives one the courage to fight anyone, whereas before she always felt helpless. The pink-haired lady nervously asks Lillian if she might be allowed to touch her hand. She gently holds Lillian's hand, feeling the calluses that have formed from years of sword practice. The lady quickly pulls back and apologizes for her rudeness, but Lillian reassures her that it is quite all right. Once the ladies have gone, Lillian sits down for a private conversation with Stian in a sunlit room. Stian confesses that she had been aware of the man tailing her for several days. Lillian asks her why she took the risk of pulling her sword on him herself. Stian looks at her hands and explains that she wanted to prove something important. She clenches her fist, stating that she wanted to prove she wouldn't give up on her dream just because of her status as a noblewoman. Lillian listens quietly, understanding that Stian's dream was reawakened after seeing her defy societal expectations. Although she knows Stian was the one who changed herself, Lillian still feels the heavy burden of this newfound responsibility. She worries about whether she can truly take on the expectations of all these women without becoming overwhelmed. To shift the heavy mood, Lillian asks Stian if she happened to notice what the ladies were wearing earlier. Stian confirms that it was clear most of them were not from wealthy families. She elaborates that they are not in a position to hire knights for protection, and that it is difficult for them to find a teacher for swordsmanship. With a somber look, Stian notes that circumstances and a lack of money can severely limit a person's options. Lillian recalls the looks of pure eagerness on all the ladies' faces during their brief training session. She realizes that the power of their dreams is far stronger than any feeling of being overwhelmed she might have. She declares that she will teach them, but they must be told that she will be done with them the moment they decide to give up. Stian gives a knowing smile, assuring Lillian that she is sure they are all prepared for the commitment. That evening, Lillian recounts the day's events to the Emperor under the light of a full moon. She finishes her story by asking Kale if she may use the palace's indoor training center for her new students. Kale, sitting on the edge of their bed, sees no reason why she should not. He leans in close and tells her that everything in the palace belongs to her as well, and she is free to use whatever she likes. He gently pats the bed beside him, asking if there is anything else he can do to help her. Kale proudly announces that he has mastered the art of making gingerbread cookies and offers to bring some for her and her students. Lillian amusingly declines, saying she'll pass if he's just planning on snapping their necks again like he did with the last batch. She then tells him that there is a simple favor she would like to ask of him. Lillian simply reaches her hand out toward him. She asks if he has had another hand massage recently, but he denies it. Kale timidly asks if they could perhaps hold hands while they sleep, worrying he might be asking for too much. Lillian is surprised for a moment, but quickly reassures him that it is not too much to ask at all. She takes his hand in hers, and they lie down in bed together, holding hands as they drift off to sleep. 1 week later, the training center is filled with 46 aspiring swordswomen, all ready for their first official lesson. Lillian stands before them, warning that the training will be incredibly difficult and will leave them breathless. She reminds them of the adage, easy come, easy go, encouraging them to persevere to the very end to reap the rewards of their efforts. The sound of a practice sword clacking against a wooden dummy marks the beginning of their arduous training. After a grueling session, she looks around at the other ladies, who are all gasping for breath but manage to hold on until the end. However, she soon discovers something even more surprising: a flood of letters from other noble ladies. Having heard that the training center was open to the public, countless nobles wrote to ask if they could also join. Just then, the door to her office creaks open, revealing an unwelcome visitor. Lillian looks up from her desk to see Prince Sharon greeting her. She feels a wave of annoyance, as she is quite sick of running into him so often, and asks what brings him to her office. Sharon says that he has heard some interesting stories spreading throughout the empire. He then places a large, ornate gift box on her desk. Lillian looks at the box with utter disdain, wondering what unwanted gift he has brought this time, knowing he plans to continue pestering her in the future.